Hey, 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 it's the Fantasy NBA today. Rick Kamla, the legendary Aaron Bruski, and we are going to get into the B150. We are going to get into our 30-team Fantasy Extravaganza. We're also going to take a brief detour here in a little while and talk All-Star. We got to get Brew's reaction to that. But Brew, it is awesome to be back on the air with you here on the Mighty Sports Ethos Fantasy Basketball platform, and we got a lot of big stuff to talk about, man. I'm excited for the show.
Yeah, it's great to talk with humans, adult humans. I've been either doing B150 or taking care of my kiddo and or being sick and traveling around San Diego wasn't half bad, but it's good to be back on the show. I'm very excited about the B150. The All-Star game was weird. Love to talk about that. 30 NBA teams. I feel like we kind of got to just get to it, but it's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too, man. Well, consider, this whole thing, right? The loving and charming Andre, me, and we're going to be your chicken soup here. We're going to make you feel better, all right? So that's Aaron Bruski. In a moment, we are going to talk about the B150, but let's talk about our great sponsor here, Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. For every three-pointer, every hat trick, BetOnline's got you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here, folks, and we begin our show talking about the B150 release. Brew, how much value will this have? How much value have our subscribers gained with the B150 two in-season releases so far? And take us into it, man.
Yeah, I saw that question came through in the rundown, and I was just curious. It's everything happens so fast when we're in the day-to-day of the NBA hullabaloo. And looking back, we had some massive wins, man. We had Tyrese Halliburton when he was in the top 30 to 50 range, and everybody was panicking. Now he's just flirting with first-round value. We locked in Trey Murphy, I thought, really effectively, not just during the initial B150 in the preseason, but during the first in-season B150, and he's gone bonkers. He's been a first-round value. Buying low on Austin Reeves was pretty good. Amen Thompson might be the top B150 play of the year. It's hard to say. We still got a third of the season to go. Folks were panicking on him after the first third of the season, and just being ahead and being ahead and being ahead. This is how you get these big wins. I thought we did a good job with Goga while he was on his little top 50 run. And even somebody like Naz Reid, just being like a couple rounds ahead of everybody. And then the thing happens, Julius Randle goes away and everybody in Minnesota gets happy. All of that stuff I thought was great with the last B150. And that's really what it's all about is taking all of these tools we use. We do 400 hours of research. I do 400 hours of research in the preseason between August, September, and October. And that all comes together with a bunch of proprietary methods that I've developed over the years, and bringing that all together, we're able to just get lots and lots and lots and lots of value. We do it during the draft season, doing it in the middle of the season. I didn't realize the potential of it. The way the schedules opened up with the longer All-Star break and the in-season tournament, finally it was like, see a shot, take a shot, and decided to keep doing this in the middle of the year. And it's a difference maker. So doing it again, identified a ton. There's so much value on the board, Rick. We got 30 teams to talk about today. Hopefully we'll hit on a lot of it. But if you have an NBA Fantasy Pass, you can go check out the article. I believe it just got released and tweeted out. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Brew, that sounds absolutely amazing. And we are going to get to our 30-team Fantasy Extravaganza. There will be a lot of B150 nuggets throughout there. You want to share a couple of players right now from the latest B150 that some of our listeners should target? Give them a little teaser.
Yeah, I couldn't not use Keon Ellis for the picture on the article. I feel like this has been a Keon Ellis year. He's been just kind of trolling along in the bottom of the top 100, but showing everybody why he's so good. All kidding aside, I'm kind of torn. Like, I have 4 Washington players that are so closely ranked. They're all minimum late round guys. They all have mid-round upside and maybe even like top 40 upside if everything breaks the right way. Right now, you could get almost all of them on waiver wires. Maybe not all of them, maybe 2 of 4 on waiver wires. So we'll talk when we get to Washington, probably Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Justin Champagnie, all these guys are exciting targets in Washington. I really want to see them get the veterans out of the way and just run these young guys who have good per minute value in the case of Champagny and George and even Koulibaly. I just want to see them go full speed. And I got a little roto versus like everything else action. I got Ty Jerome has he's been somebody that even internally we've had some kind of arguments about. Some folks don't believe in the Ty Jerome explosion. I do believe in the Ty Jerome explosion. If you're in a roto league, we're going to look at Ty Jerome, and this is a guy who's got amazing upside, currently available in a ton of leagues. I do believe at minimum you're going to get late round value for him the rest of the season, but there's just so much more. So we'll talk about him in the coming weeks. And a couple kind of older players or maybe less buzzy players, Ivica Zubac and Kelly Oubre, I think are just really nice under the radar targets. Maybe we'll get into them a little bit. I know you asked for a couple and I gave you a lot. Oh, we'll talk about Bol Bol as well. I'm sure that'll be fun.
Let's go. Brew, went with, and I did this as well with all the teams. So a little teaser, we will be talking about Bol Bol later on in this episode when we get to the Phoenix Suns. So guys and girls, I want to tell you about this real quick here before we move on we got to get Brew talking about the All-Star game here, but I got to tell you, okay, the B150 is out. All right, everybody go to sportsethos.com, grab a subscription, not a big deal for you. It helps us out. Get the All Sport Fantasy Pass using promo code ALLSPORT2025. That's ALLSPORT2025 for just $7 a month, guys. A package valued at $19 a month. It includes the NBA Fantasy Pass, MLB Fantasy Pass, including our draft guide, which is live right now, featuring some contributions from your boy Cam, NFL Fantasy Pass, draft guides for all sports, draft trackers to dominate draft day, in-season and off-season content for year-round fantasy success, and of course the B150 with a proven track record of dominating fantasy basketball, helping our subscribers win, and with many high-stakes leagues and championships year after year as the proof of its value. So do all of that stuff, guys. We would appreciate that. The B150 is out, baby. So, Brew, before we get into really a breakdown of 28 teams, let's talk about the Wednesday game because there are some juicy, like little subplots here. Actually, I'm forgetting about the All-Star thing. We'll get into the look ahead to Charlotte and LA in a moment. But so a lot of conversation. I was on the Sports Ethos NBA show with Rick Kamla earlier, had Nick Hamilton on. We were debating some of the stuff over All-Star weekend. Check that out online, guys. But Brew, there's a ton to talk about, a ton of debate points. I want to ask you overall, did you think it was a win or a loss for the NBA All-Star weekend?
Look, it's only a win if this causes them to rip the entire Band-Aid off and just clean house with everything that they've been doing and start the thing from scratch. This thing, I was astonished watching it because it's like they're perfectly screwing it up. Like there's not a mistake in their execution of screwing up an event. And I didn't know which thing bothered me the most. Mr. Beast was up there. I mean, that poor guy who made the $100,000 shot had Mr. Beast draped all over him while he was shooting. That was annoying. But then Kevin Hart was just so annoying and so bad. And I love Kevin Hart. I think he's a funny dude. It's just I felt like I kept coming back to it. Felt like somebody's like 16-year-old cousin who's high up in the NBA was kind of maybe just given the job of designing an event and they thought, well, let's put Kevin Hart in this and that'll be great. And it was so offensive, I think, to the intelligence of fans everywhere that they would want to listen to Kevin Hart in the middle of a game and go through all of that. So there was just a lot there. I think that that was the most painful thing I've ever watched. I'll leave it at that.
Which part? The game with all of the ads and the long breaks and the Kevin Hart, and it was one of the worst, literally, TV shows of all time. Or does this go back to All-Star Saturday and Rising Stars on Friday? Not that any of us really watched that one, but like, was it just All-Star Sunday night and just the greed attack that we got with all of the ads, and we got like 5 minutes of basketball and basically a 3-hour infomercial?
It was the way they sold it, they hard sold it. Like Candace Parker came on before the Rising Stars game and hard sold this in. And I was like, damn, you go, Candace. That is really good. That was a great sales pitch. I'm in. And then 30 minutes of intros of the Rising Stars. The poor dancing girls had like run out of 5 million dance moves. They couldn't think of anything else to dance with. And it was just weird. It was just weird. I bet if you had a ticket and you watched that whole thing, you probably left that building thinking you walked into the weirdest thing you'd ever seen. The halftime show or the halftime show on Sunday was awful.
What was it? I don't even remember.
It was E40. Who else? It was E40 and I'm forgetting.
Was it too short?
It was too short. I mean, like that would have been great 20 years ago. I would have loved it. We bumped that every single day, but it was painful. I don't know. It was every aspect of it was painful. That was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. That's all I got.
Oh
That's
all
I got.
It cracked me up, dude. My boy Brew back in the day, terrible. Bumping too short.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. Yes. Take me back. I'm not hating. I'm not like co-signing. I didn't see the halftime show, so I know nothing about that. All right, Brew. I don't Andre, everybody.
That we got that out of our system.
That was so worth it to hear Brew. We're all sort of like in funny mode or agitated mode, complaining about the All-Star game in some way, shape, or form. So that was really good. All right, Brew.
Hey, the format was okay. I'll give it that.
Okay, so the not the game, but the semis and the target, the game,
the target score of 40 points. I think that does something for the game, and then I think bringing in some sort of competitive element, whether that's somebody said the snubs. I forget who it was. Bringing in the All-Star snubs to play instead of the Rising Stars or the young G Leaguers. I'm sure that they didn't want to lose to those guys, but it was also that, there's a bunch of random players on the court that are not all stars. That's not something that folks wanted to see. But that said, I think there are some competitive elements they could build on there.
Yeah, I liked the ramp up in competitiveness, Brew. The last 2 years were just, it was a festival of laziness. It was crazy. And this year I saw guys playing basketball. It actually looked like our sport. Guys were sweating. Guys were closing out on threes. Guys were at least half-heartedly guarding the rim and stuff. I mean, Wemby was out there like it's Game 7 of the finals. I love that dude. But
the Chris Paul stuff, man, I can't even. The Chris Paul and Wemby stuff. When that happened, I was the biggest groan I've had in a while. You've already got complaints about this thing. You already have complaints about the competitiveness of this thing, and then you get the poster child of that kind of crap in the NBA that people don't like, Chris Paul. And the biggest star that's coming into the game, the gargantuan star that is Victor Wembanyama, and then he decides to co-sign with Chris Paul on that tactic to try to win the skills game. That was too much. But anyway, I digress.
So yeah, I absolutely hate the skills challenge, and I absolutely love. We were complaining about this last week, at least me. They need to just flush that event. It sucks so bad. The players don't know what the hell they're doing. And you had Wemby make an absolute mockery of the event, right? With just throwing the balls out instead of actually shooting them so you could get it done quicker and then getting the DQ. I mean, are you serious, dude? That's one of the funniest things we've ever seen from Wemby. This guy's so wise beyond his years. But literally, NBA, they're making a mockery of the skills challenge. A mockery, okay? Like, let alone the three-point contest and the dunk contest. Oh, okay, Doc. Let's get into, Brew. Let's get into our 30-team breakdown. And we begin with the first two teams here. A little preview of Wednesday night. I know it's Monday here, so it's a couple of days away, depending on when you're watching us here. But there's a lot of storylines and stuff with Charlotte at LA. And I want to go off script here, okay? This is something that I came up with, Brew, even after kind of doing my thing here with the show, and I know you've got your notes. I've got a conspiracy theory for you, and it has everything to do with this game. Do you think, Brew, as I contend, that LeBron James, big time the All-Star game, as a boycott, sign of protest for the NBA rescheduling the January 9th Fire game, on Wednesday coming out of the All-Star break, completely buzz-killing any vacation he could have taken. And by the way, it's the first of a back-to-back. They're at Portland, which is a house of horrors historically for the Lakers on second and back-to-backs. That's what you get coming out of the break. That is why I think LeBron James did not play in the All-Star game. As we dive into Lakers and Hornets, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. It's logical. I mean, it's good for him, and it's a team that they don't really need everything, all their players to beat. So yeah, I think that's probably the leader in the clubhouse for the reasons that he didn't play, and the iciness between players and league that's always on display. How they get players to participate in an all-star game that the players don't largely care about because it doesn't directly correlate to income. Another subplot of all of this. But as far as the game itself goes, I'm not even really interested in the Lakers in this game. I mean, of course, I want to watch them. I want to see what Luka looks like. I want to watch all of that. That's like great television. But from a fantasy standpoint, you've got streamer central here. It is literally like an entire list of the back end of the roster. You got Musa Diabate, probably still questionable. Nick Smith, Yusuf Nurkic, KJ Simpson, Tijan Solon is just sort of randomly sitting there as a possibility. Alfred Payton's on the team. I mean, there's a lot going on here. You could take your pick of these guys, and I would probably rank them as I said them. Josh Green is even getting minutes and productive. So if you need a streamer for today, Wednesday, pardon me, it's not Wednesday, that you got plenty of ammo there.
I like Nick Smith. I think Nick Smith's going to have a big second half here, and it will become even bigger if LaMelo Ball does not play. Or if Miles Bridges does not play. I believe that Diabate is going to be not just a streamer, but a roster guy over the second half of the year. And I believe if him and Nurkic are up and running, that he will start and Nurkic will come off the bench. The Mark Williams thing lingers, but that feels funky and like he may not come back and play with them. I just don't know. We just have to deal with what we know here and now. And to me, that's Diabate over Nurkic. Brew, question for you. Will LaMelo Ball and or Miles Bridges be shut down? Because there are teams that are trending the wrong way. This is a great debate for us to have here as we go to some of these select, like Brooklyn, right? When we get to them, are they going to, but let's focus on Charlotte here. Do you feel like they're going to shut their guys down or just play it straight?
No, I do feel like they're going to shut their guys down. And I think there's kind of a pecking order for that. I think that Mark Williams operates a little bit on his own axis. The note by Adam Silver that Charlotte didn't file a protest with the league tells me a lot. If there was actually some material difference in the medical that got passed over to Los Angeles, and then they proceeded with that, that would lead me to believe that Mark Williams is more healthy, and then them playing him would be kind of the way to say, hey, this was a good trade. And now that they haven't taken that legal step, and that makes me want to tap the brakes on the idea that Mark Williams is actually going to come back and play a lot. Now, he still might come back and play, and that would be their way of Charlotte saying, okay, hey, he is healthy. This trade should have gone through, and they can kind of save a little bit of face like that. He's on his own axis, but LaMelo Ball is the first one to exit stage left. He always is, and there's the question about how much he wants to play basketball. I think, down the stretch in March and April, we've talked about that a bunch. And Miles Bridges is the guy that they've always wanted to toss out there to sort of rehabilitate his image, his value, and he's just happy to run out there and play 30 minutes a game. But I do think he will also be shut down. They're in a very tight tank race. Washington's got a 2-3 team lead, or probably a 2-3 win lead in that tank race. And but then there's a big 3-team island right there, and Charlotte's right in the middle of that. So I think those guys were hard to rank in the B150. I think it was where like LaMelo Ball landed, for example. I think it was kind of the perfect place you put him, but he could slide in those ranks within a day or a week and go all the way down to the bottom if they start announcing things like he's not going to play anymore. But yeah, I'm expecting the shutdown.
Miles Bridges too, or just LaMelo? I mean, because like with LaMelo, to me, is just so brittle. Like I'm kind of holding out hope that Bridges plays the whole year, and I kind of think he will, Brew. I don't know.
I'd handicap it like this. I'd say LaMelo Ball's got 3 more weeks where he's kind of quote unquote questionable every day, and then eventually something happens. And then with Bridges, I would say he's probably good for like 5 weeks. It just depends on when your fantasy playoffs ends, if it's going to be crucial to you or not. But yeah, no, 5 weeks. I think that they're going to start kicking everybody out. It's going to be Nick Smith time.
That is Aaron Bruski. I'm Rick Kamla. We are the Fantasy NBA today. All right, Brew. I got another question for you, and then we can wrap this up and move on to the other teams. Luka Doncic. Okay, I said earlier today on the Sports Ethos NBA show with Rick Kamla that I did 3 pop players and 3 pop teams in the second half, and Luka was one of my pop players. And so Doey Doncic is his new nickname, right? So we'll see what what happens here after All-Star break. He probably isn't in better shape, but I do, Brew, expect Doey Doncic to get back up to 30, 10, and 10. And he's been really human in his first 2 games with the Lakers. So weight aside and all that aside, I am anticipating a pop from Luka. Are you?
I think I mentioned at the deadline that I thought that maybe this would etch away some of his value and that he would be a back end of the first round guy, possibly some slippage here. And after diving into the numbers, it was different. It was way closer that he would remain as sort of a top 4 or 5 guy in 9 cat formats. The bunching of like say 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 was really tight. I was tempted to put a couple players that you would not think of as early round guys in above Luka Doncic, but ultimately, no, he's probably going to hang on. There's a lot of variance to this. If LA decides to hang a hard left, it wouldn't shock me. But yeah, no, for the time being, check out the B150 and see where he's landing. But I think he's probably okay for down the stretch.
Okay, I understand. I think Luke is kind of a buy low guy right now with what time you have left to buy low. I know trade deadlines are coming up here, but these lines with LA, there are questions about fit with LeBron. LeBron's still going to be that number 1 guy. Reeves has been playing well, even in the Luka game. So maybe you could, like Jason Tatum. I'm sending Jason Tatum to the Luka owner to try to get into some Luka here down the stretch. I just think he's going to get into better shape and start hitting a high as they approach the playoffs or play-in tournament. Brew, anything else on Charlotte or LA? Are you ready to dive into the Atlanta Hawks?
No, let's go. We got 28. I love it.
28 teams to go and having a lot of fun with you guys here on the Fantasy NBA today. So, Brew, tip us off here on the Atlanta Hawks. How are you viewing them from a fantasy perspective down the stretch?
Okay, we got 2 different things I'm watching for. First is Onyeka Okongwu. He's been great over the last month or so, really just took the starting center position and even becoming an offensive force. He had a 30-plus point game. Can he keep that going? It sounds like Clint Capella is going to come back. It sounds like he was dealing with a real injury. It wasn't something about the trade deadline or anything like that. He comes back, and now they got kind of a 2-man game there. Does he revert back to top 100, top 150 even, Onyeka Okongwu? And then you have this confluence of players in Karis LeVert, Georges Niang. I think I just did silent G for that. Mohamed Gay and Vic Krejci is effectively out for the rest of the season. Larry Nance is pretty much out for the rest of the season. So there is a bunch of minutes here for somebody to do something with them. Karis LeVert has had some good fantasy output in the past, especially with the PRA. And Niang with the 3-point shooting. He's got a relationship with Quinn Snyder. And then Gay's come in and he's had a ton of defensive stats. He's only got like 7 NBA games under his belt. He may be in the G League tomorrow. We just don't know. Those 3 guys are on the radar, and Gay's got the upside there.
Gay does. Their deployment of him has been very unusual. He'll start a game, play 13 minutes, start a game, play 18 minutes. Then I think because he's on a 2-way, they got to send him down. And it's been a weird yo-yo, but Gay has caught my eye a little bit as well. There have been some goodies in those lines, especially in the blocks and steals. As I look at this, Brew, the Hawks right now are the land of opportunity via the waiver wire. Maybe not quite like the Washington Wizards, but there are 2 must-adds. And then another streamer on this team. Karis LeVert is a must-add right now. In the Wednesday game against New York, arguably the game of the year, he went 20, 10, and 7 in 35 minutes off the bench. Niang in that game went 21, 4, and 3, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 4 threes in 34 minutes off the bench in that game. These dudes are good to go. Once Nance and Krejci left the lineup, these guys were good to go. They're immediate pickups to me, especially LeVert. And then Zachary Sachet is the streamer, Brew. I believe that he's going to just keep playing better here. May even make a little late run at Rookie of the Year. In that New York game, he had 16 points in 30 minutes. He went 1 block, 1 steal, and 2 threes. So, he's not a PRA guy at all. The rebounds and assists are like atrocious. And he's becoming a better defensive guy. The threes are going to be there a little bit from him. So it's not like a perfect stat profile across the board, but as a streamer, hey man, 15 points and 3 threes. You can use that kind of stuff on a light, Thursday night type of thing. So, Brew, let's move on to the Boston Celtics, and I'll let you go first here as well. What you got fantasy-wise on both stones?
Well, you're going to let me go first because there's nothing to talk about with this squad. I mean, you're going to have a bunch of guys rest down the stretch theoretically. If they're in a tie with Cleveland, then they might actually let it roll a little bit. I'm watching for the Unicornet, Luke Cornet. Can the Unicornet have any value down the short? The Unicornet.
Hold on, is that a brew joint or is that from the streets of Boston?
I think it's from the streets of old school Roto World. To be honest,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that was like the Unicornet was the name of an article title, and he back in the days, he was 10 points, 2 threes, 5 boards, 2 assists, and like 2 steals and 2 blocks. Just on a random Tuesday or something, and then you'd go, oh man, this guy Luke Cornet, what could he do? And then he kind of fade away and go away, and now he's jumping at the rim trying to distract people from shooting 3-point shots. He's just that guy, right? And now, but all kidding aside, if Boston starts resting their players, this is a guy who can come in and have some silly season value. So that's all I'm watching for in Boston. What about you?
I like the Luke Cornet take. I think Sam Hauser falls into that bucket a little bit. Like on a night, like again, it's let's say it's a 3-game Sunday, right? I haven't looked at the schedule. I'm just saying. Sunday head-to-head all comes down to Sunday. You got a 5-game Sunday, right? Okay, I need some streamers like Sam Hauser. Brown is out and Holiday's out, right? Boom. Go get some threes with Hauser, right? So I got a thought and then a question for you here. And I want to kind of piggyback on your Cornet thing. We all know about Peyton Pritchard right now, right? He's not a streamer. He's a roster guy. He's been on rosters all year. All of that is understood. But I believe we could see a little pop from Peyton Pritchard with Brown resting, Tatum resting, Holiday, I believe he's currently out right now, Derek White resting, Horford and Porzingis resting, right? Boston's going to have their 5.5, I believe, right now back at Cleveland, right? That's going to be tough to overcome. They may be just stuck into that number 2 zone and start, because last year it was a rest parade for Boston in the last 20 to 25 games, okay? A parade of rest. So I think Pritchard should benefit from that. Let me ask you a question. Is Drew Holiday in a 12-team league? In a 12-team league, Aaron Bruski, is Drew Holiday a roster guy or a streamer?
He's a streamer. He's absolutely a streamer. He's already kind of proven that this season with the value he's provided, but also he's a guy they want to rest up and they want to make sure that he's nice and spry for the playoffs. The only thing that could happen here is he's had a little bit too much rest and they go, hey, we need to get you back up to speed. And that happens at some point in time in late March and in early April, and you kind of catch the reverse effect. But from a betting standpoint, no, you're not going to bet on that. He's a streamer, and hopefully you get that upside.
I've got him in the Cam Dynasty, Brew. I'm holding on to him, but I'm telling you, he is hanging on by a thread. This is a 14-team Dynasty league, 15-man roster plus 6 IR. Okay, it's extremely deep. He'd be plucked off immediately the waiver wire if I drop him, which makes it tough. But he's teetering, man. In a 14-team beefy Dynasty league, Drew Holiday, get it going. All right, Brooklyn Nets. And I teased a little while ago. We'll talk about the possible shutdown here. So Aaron Bruski, I'll get us started here. You've got Cam Johnson, you've got D'Angelo Russell, you've got Nicholas Claxton, all currently playing. And they are blocking our guy Keon Johnson from his silly season explosion. But will that silly season explosion even happen? Okay. Also, you have Cam Thomas lurking, right? He has not been shut down for the year. He's been out forever. But, Brew, the Nets are 20-34, 20 wins. All right. Nothing impressive, but they're not getting Cooper Flagg. Okay. They've won too much. I mean, I guess they could with a frozen envelope, but they're not getting Cooper Flagg. They're not even close to the top of the lottery standings. Okay. So, and they've really played it straight all year, Brew. Okay. When their guys have been healthy, they've played. And I like that, right? But Cam Johnson's missed a bunch of time. Cam Thomas has missed a bunch of time. I believe, Brew, that they are going to push forward. Okay. They're in New York. They don't want to lose 15 games in a row playing G Leaguers. They're in New York, right? So, and so I think they're going to play it straight here. Maybe like the second to last week of the season, right? Maybe we start looking ahead, being smart with players, bubble wrap, blah, blah, blah. But I have hope that Cam Thomas comes back. And I believe these guys are going to continue to play. And I don't believe that they're going to hit the developmental button, which is very, very important for fantasy here. So I think these guys still should hold on to them, get the most value out of them. I don't think you should fear this and go pick up silly season guys, because I don't think that's going to be happening in Brooklyn, Brew.
I made that noise a second ago because you said that they were pushing hard and going forward. And it was like, this team, these guys, this team that was like over under, I think it was like 15 or something. And I think I pounded the under. Like, this is there's a lot going on here. We got a bunch of teams to talk about, so we'll talk about them all. But the bottom of the East is really shaky right now, and Brooklyn is 1.5 games out of the play-in. And this is a Jordy Fernandez type of a thing. He's just going to cut the other, go against the grain. He's going to go the other direction with this thing, and he's going to try to win with these guys. So yeah, can Keon Johnson turn the corner? I kind of think he will on merit alone, like just push his way up. And then Cam Thomas, we got to see what's up with that. Like, how does that look? You know, that shifts the entire dynamic of the team. And do they even want to do that? Because all of a sudden you're going to take 5 players and affect them for one guy who may or may not be in the long-term plans of the team. And who knows how bad everything is with him. But the Brooklyn Nets, baby, they're very disinteresting from a fantasy standpoint, in the sense you got all these players that could get a lot of minutes, and none of them have been able to stand out from each other except for Keon Johnson, and we'll keep an eye on that. So that's all I care about in Brooklyn these days is, can Keon Johnson turn the corner?
Yeah, I'm not a D-Lo guy, but he's playing. I mean, the stat line's pretty much a waiver wire stat line. But if you manage Nick Claxton, continue to ride it out. If you manage Cam Johnson, continue to ride it out. I think these guys are going to play, especially with what Bruce said about
it's great for those guys. Those guys are going to get a little bit extra life.
Yeah, this team's trying to make the play-in tournament too, man. So what about these Chicago Bulls, Brew? And are you going to take us into Matus Buzelis' failed first dunk, which was pathetic? And he just gave up. I mean, we love Buzelis over here in the fantasy space, but homie had like 12 seconds left and just gave up after like 8 tries. And said,
I didn't watch any of it. I don't know anything about this, but watching the intros to the Rising Stars game, he was just this goofy, floppy-haired kid that, was just kind of laughing and smiling and hanging on all over everybody. And it was like 30 minutes of that. So it makes perfect sense that he did something goofy and, like just not quite ready for prime time. But this guy's going to get a lot of run, folks. And here's the thing that's really interesting. Sometimes players come out of college or overseas, like Giannis, right? Nobody thought Giannis was this guy, like at all. Like they kind of said he was soft and slow, but lengthy, kind of a Nick Batum kind of a guy. Maybe Nick Batum after he was super athletic, like just kind of a doughy, kind of a guy. And then he becomes just this bruising, freak. So anyway, like, what is Matas Buzelis? I kind of wonder, can he be an assists guy? He's really thin. He's really quick. He's got an aggression to his game to get to the rim. So are they going to start exploring that? He's had 2.5 assists over the last 3 games. Is that going to be something of a difference maker for him? Because otherwise he's blocks and threes and points and a small trickle of rebounds. And that's good, but not great. It's going to feel like it's a lot more valuable than it really is. So I'm really watching that. And I think I'm switching to a sell high on Coby White. And I hate it because Kobe's just sort of sat around this season, positioning himself for a late season run, very buy lowish, very solid buy low, like, a really good player that's just not quite performing. And it's going to come. And then this ankle thing has completely upset his season. I don't know if the rest this week, we'll get a real good indicator of if he's popping up on that injury report with his ankle after a week off, then it's bad. And that would be the trigger to not try to buy low on Coby White at all. So I kind of think if people think the buy low is coming, maybe you get a little bit more value getting rid of him than waiting for this ankle thing to play out. So I'll be watching for that. It's close either way with him.
Let's talk about I'm still kind of looking at Coby White as a buy low right now. I think there's going to be a multitude of 20-point games for Coby down the stretch, but I am concerned about that ankle that you're talking about, and that first injury report is going to be huge for Coby. I've been saying for a while here, Brew, that Nikola Vucevic is a sell high guy. He has hit a freaking wall. The value has plummeted. He's hovering around a double-double now as opposed to being like a 2010-ish type of guy. So, the overall stat line for the year is still very, very good. So I think people can still sell high with this guy. Where are you at with Vooch? And I want to know, based on the B150, okay, how is that looking at Nikola Vucevic? I would love to know. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. It's a definite fade. I mean, there's not going to be a great chance that this thing ends well. I think Chicago, for once in their life, decided that they didn't want to win this season. Now they're in the 10 slot as usual, and they're well positioned to do it. Thank you, Philly. But they and the Heat are kind of falling like rocks right now. They might feel good about their play-in chances and then therefore make a run. But I really do think organizationally, you've heard a lot of talk about them really looking to the future. So I don't think he plays through anything substantial. I think that's true of everybody on the roster. And with each roster player that goes, whether that's Kobe White or something happens to somebody else, it gets harder for Vooch to be as effective as he has been. So I think whether he stays healthy and they stay active, just the chance for natural erosion is going to keep picking away at his game. And then Philly, this is the team that's really going to determine a lot here. If Philly just decides to pack it in for whatever reason, that might change everything for Chicago, because then they might actually be in the play-in and say, hey guys, we got to actually play this thing out because we have a puncher's chance to get into the playoffs. So that to me might be a counter argument, but I think generally speaking, you want to sell high on Vooch.
I think the Bulls, Brew, are going to play this out. I do not see anybody getting shut down. I could definitely see them like being precautious with a turned ankle and maybe being a little bit more prudent than go for it with that. But I think overall the vibe with Billy Donovan has always been to win. It's the Reinsdorf family. They're in Chicago. Again, I don't think they want a 10-game losing streak here. And their fans turning on them and all that kind of stuff. It's just that, but that's just how I view it. We may see a different tack here.
That's their DNA, and they've been walked to the point where they're still in contention. Like Philly, if Philly had just kind of run away with things and Miami was doing their thing and kind of being normal, then it would be easy. They would just say, "All right, we'll just try to get a good draft pick." But no, they're in it again.
Dude, the middle of the East this year is like soft as there was a Luka.
Name your metaphor. Oh, soft like Doughboy.
I was gonna say Luka's midsection, but it's too many.
He looks like he's in shape though, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I got another yeah, right for you, Brew. When Ja Morant said, Mac has me thinking I'm gonna do the dunk contest, and I quote retweeted, yeah, right. I forget what I said after that. Like words I put.
You can't throw that out there and then everybody knows you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. And Giannis is not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Not a chance.
You can't catch us snapping on X, man. Me and Brew were like, you're so full of crap. You're not going to do this. Give me a break, dude. I mean, Ja Morant, just play. Become a full-time player again, as opposed to the part-time player that you are. I guess we got some Ja stuff coming up here. But I'm sell high with Vooch, not because I fear a shutdown, just because the production is like timber. It's like falling like a sequoia up there in Northern California where Brew is at. Love Matas Buzelis. I think he's going to have a big second half, might be strong. I think he's going to have a real solid second half for you, okay? And you were kind of going back with maybe some comparisons or like identifications of his game. Like I said, coming out, looking at him in, what was it, G League Ignite or whatever team he was on, right? That he reminded me of Chet Holmgren. The aggression you talked about, block shots, he hits threes, he can handle the rock a little bit. He's a very versatile, skinny, long player. And clearly Chet Holmgren dwarfs him height-wise, but he gave me some Chet Holmgren vibes. All right, the Cleveland Cavaliers here, Brew. I've got a quick little tee off for us here. Will DeAndre Hunter maintain his Hawks value coming off the Cavs bench? And you spoke very highly about Ty Jerome earlier in this episode, and I did not disagree. But Ty Jerome did not play in DeAndre Hunter's restore order game Wednesday when he had 18 points and 4 threes in 27 minutes, and it looked very Hawk-like, okay? But there was no Jerome for that game. So I am still fading DeAndre Hunter. I believe that his numbers, so if he was at 18, 19, 20 with the Hawks, I believe he's going to be like 10, 11, 12 with Cleveland. So talk to me about DeAndre Hunter, Brew, and then take us wherever you want to go on these Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think look at the standings with these guys. If they lose, and I am so rooting for that because you guys all know I have a lot of money on JB Bickerstaff to win the Coach of the Year award. But if they come back to the pack with Boston, they have a 5.5 game lead right now. If that thing just stays at 5.5 in 10 games, maybe even 15 games, I'd say in 10 games, if it's at that point, you're going to start seeing Donovan Mitchell take every other game off. You're going to start seeing Darius Garland. You're going to start seeing Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley. These guys are going to start taking every other game off. They're going to do what Boston did last year, getting ready for the playoffs, especially Donovan Mitchell, who already does that kind of thing just on a normal year. So with that, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, even like Hunter might actually see a way through this. I just don't think it's a great bet. I don't think the ROI is there. Ty Jerome is a ball handler who's getting you top 100 value in basically 20 minutes per game. That's so succulent. It's like if he gets in there and becomes a 32-minute guy because they sit a guy or somebody gets injured. I mean, you're talking about somebody who could possibly go over top 50. He's done it for a few stretches already this season. It feels like he has the skill, that it's not like a flash in the pan. And the percentages, everything is just so great about it. And he's even contributing across the board. So that's where I'm like with Ty Jerome, I'll put up with the hassle. Like right now, he had a calf injury, didn't play. Couple kind of small games over the last week or so. It might take a week or two for him to get going, but I'm okay with that because you know you'll get a decent value here in the meantime. But when that thing happens, it's going to go big.
Rank these guys rest of season, Brew. Max Strus, and the two guys we were just talking about, DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome. Rank those three guys.
I'll go Jerome, Hunter, and Strus, even though Strus just came off a couple big games. It's tough, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
I put Hunter last on that list. Strus is starting, and I think that's going to stabilize his value a little bit more. And Strus is more of a goodie guy than DeAndre Hunter. Strus will give you 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, and a steal. And DeAndre Hunter doesn't really – I mean, I'm not out here saying Max Strus is Cade Cunningham packing the box score. I'm just saying he does more. The box score likes him more than DeAndre Hunter. I'll phrase it like that. He's Aaron Bruski. I'm Rick Kamla. We are the GOATs, the OGs. We're hanging out with you on the Fantasy NBA. Today, we are taking you on a 30-team fantasy extravaganza. And we have come to a very intriguing team here, Brew. I know you've got goodies on the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. So talk to us about Big D.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kessler Edwards is fantasy relevant in some leagues. No, it is the whole team. You got Kyrie. If anything happens there, that'll open everything up, wide open for the rest of the roster. But between him and PJ Washington, those are your clear cut, go-to guys on this squad. No surprises there. But Max Christie is really in a great spot to go maybe top 75 the rest of the way. Najee Marshall has a clear runway to be a late-round guy. Klay Thompson has a clear runway to be a late-round guy. Spencer Dinwiddie has a clear runway to be a late-round guy. Probably won't, but he's got that runway, so we got to kind of keep an eye on that. Dante Exum has a chance here to prove he can actually be productive in fantasy leagues. He's had some nice moments over the last year or two, just making big shots, making big plays, being a good defender, being a winning basketball player. But now they might ask him to actually do stuff. He'll be on the radar. And then Hardy, even in some formats, will be on the radar. So this team just opened wide open, lots of opportunity. And I like him in that order.
Brew, do you trust PJ Washington, who's currently hurt? I presume he'll be back at the break or shortly after the break. Do you trust PJ Washington in a buy low type of thing right now? I think he's a good buy low guy for people because you don't have Gafford, you don't have Davis. So talk to me, are you glass half full or empty on him?
No, I think half full. He's got a lot of skills handling the ball as like a kind of big man point guard hybrid. I say that all very loosely, but in the playoffs last season, they turned to him to handle the rock a little bit. There are enough other ball handlers in this mix too, where it doesn't get totally terrible with somebody like him handling the rock. He's lost efficiency in the times that Luka has been gone, and that has blunted some of the upside of the more poppy numbers that he produces. That phenomena is going to continue. I think that's just a part of this. it's going to happen that way. But I think that in terms of a top 75 baseline producer that could theoretically go top 50 with a name that you can actually buy into, I think he fits the bill. You're probably not going to get a ton of margin there, but it's definitely something to tap into if you can.
And not a big name, which makes him a perfect trade target for you. Ship Zion Williamson over for him, right? These guys that are just unreliable. Just Ja Morant. Am I doing that? Yeah, I'm doing that. I got to see the PJ is going to be right coming out of the break. And then I'm offering Ja Morant for PJ Washington. It's like that. I see a pop coming here for PJ Washington. Brew, as I said, no Gafford, no Davis. I think he's going to be, the 22 and 13 with 5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 3 threes line. I think we're going to be getting a lot of those. All right. Breakout rest of season player for me, and you mentioned him, Brew, Max Christie. It is abundantly clear that he is at the tippy top of the pecking order for playing time, okay? He has averaged 34 minutes a game in his first 6 games in the Dallas uniform. Dinwiddie doesn't get time like that, right? And he's been there and has been with Kidd and blah, blah, blah. Over these 6 games, Max Christie, here's his 5-cat line: 17, 5 and 3, 1 and 1, blocks and steals, 2.5 3 balls. All right. Percentages: 49, 45, 83. What? The guy's blistering hot in Dallas, obviously loving the elbow room and the usage rate and the shots. And he's thriving with it. This is why the Lakers made him a first-round pick. The guy's actually pretty good. Laker fans are like, we let another one get away. It was Brandon Ingram, and it was Lonzo Ball, and it was Josh Hart. And, yep, you let another one get away. But you didn't let Dalton Connect get away, so be happy about that, people. All right, Brew, you go first here on the Denver Nuggets, another intriguing team with the Gordons and the Porters and the Westbrooks and the Browns and how that whole thing comes together.
Yeah. There's not that sizzle of some of these teams that have lost a big player and then like everybody's just kind of got a ton of value all of a sudden. But like Jamal Murray's been on a heater. Like, how does that work? Michael Porter Jr. is due for a bounce back. I really think that you could see some top 40 production out of Michael Porter Jr. the rest of the way. Wouldn't shock me at all. And then just generally, how does this team gravitate toward playoff rotations? And I'm looking at Russell Westbrook. Like, Michael Malone loves Russell Westbrook because of all of the Warriors stuff. And it just, the I don't care part of his game. But you got to care about that in the playoffs. So are they going to bring him back to, say, 20, 25 minutes? Inform him that he's not allowed to do everything he wants to do with the basketball? Does Jokic get in there and say, hey, guys, we got to clean it up? I do think it'll probably take a week or two for them to recover from the All-Star break, the time off, and just sort of the general kind of, lagging around. And even Jokic talks about kind of how he takes a break and, you know what the score is there. A week or two later, I think these guys are going to kick it into high gear. And then does MPJ go off and does Jamal Murray stay on a heater?
I definitely think Denver, with their championship DNA, is going to start to percolate that vibe, that intangible. And I really, in terms of like, no one's making a run at OKC. I like in the playoffs or the regular season. To me, they got the West on lock. Denver is the one team that could unlock that for me. Houston's just too young. Like, we all love Houston. They're my little team that could. They're my boys. I watch them every night, blah, blah, blah. They haven't even played in a playoff series together, okay? They're going to beat OKC? No, they're not. Memphis, no, they're not beating OKC. The Lakers, no, they're not beating OKC. They're just freaking not. You can say, well, Dallas beat them last year. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they had Luka. They don't have Luka, and they're not beating them, all right? And you're probably not going to have Davis now. All right, so Denver here. I do think we're going to have a fruitful second half from Denver, guys. And want to make a comment here on Jamal Murray, and then let's do some more stacking, Brew, for the people. They love it when we stack, some stuff. Jamal Murray here. Last year, Brew, pardon me. I just had something happen. Sorry, had a little throat ditty go down right there. Jamal Murray last year, Brew, first half to second half was a plus 2.1 points per game in the second half. He started to play better. He seems to always come into the season kind of not in great shape, and he works his way into shape, right? It's the Jamal Murray way. He'll never make the All-Star team that way, but he's cool with it. He's a New Balance ads. Do you, bro? I don't care. So I do see Jamal Murray having a bunch of big games and playing really well. He understands the assignment. So, Brew, who would you rather have for the stretch run? Okay. Rank these 4 guys rest of season: Russell Westbrook, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr. Was Murray in that list? I'll go Murray after Michael Porter Jr. Just a hunch. And then I'll go Christian Brown. I'll go Russell Westbrook, and I'll go Peyton Watson.
And Westbrook. And where would you have Aaron Gordon in there?
I would have, unfortunately, Aaron Gordon at the bottom.
Wow.
It's unfortunate, but wow. I really think they should bring him off the bench, but that's just maybe a little too nerdy. I don't know. Because Russell Westbrook as a facilitator in a playoff setting, I just cannot get behind. I think it's got to be Gordon, and you could mix the minutes however you want to mix them, or just try to get him and Jokic separated. But yeah, no, I mean that's the lack of goodies overall. It's the bad free throw shooting. He's a better reality player than fantasy player, so I'm gonna put him at the bottom. Maybe over Peyton Watson, maybe because Watson's probably the guy who's on the outside looking in. Yeah, I'll flip that. I'll go Watson, then Gordon, or Watson at the bottom and Gordon above him.
Very, very, very interesting. I would have Murray over Porter, and I would have Westbrook over Brown. That one's tough. I would definitely have both of those guys over Aaron Gordon, who I completely agree. Better reality player than fantasy. He's an elite reality player. He's a very mediocre waiver wire fantasy player. Sometimes it happens that way. Christian Brown has been on such a freaking scorching heater, man. My gosh, he's playing great basketball. But Westbrook's going to come back and do his thing and flirt with triple doubles, man. I would go Porter, Murray, Westbrook, Brown, Gordon, and Watson. All right, let's keep it moving here, Brew. It is Fantasy NBA today. Rick Kamla and Aaron Bruski taking you team by team through 30 teams. 30 to the head, yo. I want to tip us off here with the Detroit Pistons, Brew, who are, in my opinion, in reality, a very sexy team down the stretch. They're 3 games over 500. They're in 6th place right now. Can they hang on? Yeah, I think they can. All right. They just went to Chicago back-to-back games and beat them by 850 points. This is a legit team. Not that Chicago's great. You get my point, though. Ausar Thompson, Brew, in the second half. The breakout's already started. All right. See if you can buy low with this guy right now. You go to your waiver wire just to double check and see if he's still out there. He most likely will not be. See if you can pluck Ausar Thompson off somebody's roster for a low dough offering. Last week, Brew, 17, 5 and 5, 0.7 blocks, 2.3 steals. And I think the numbers are just going to keep ascending from there. The minutes are slowly upticking a little bit here. So what you got on Detroit?
Basically what you said. I mean, Ausar Thompson finally showing real life. It's been very spotty his entire career. This restart this season, the first couple of weeks were pretty bad. Just no light at the end of the tunnel, it felt like. And then boom, right before the break, 2 weeks of decent PRA with the steals and everything starting to come together. I mean, it's probably going to mirror, shocking, what Amon's been doing in Houston, in the sense that last season, Amon had all these games that were light in the stats, but you could see the stat set. It was guaranteed even that Amon's stat set was not going to be the bad version. It was going to be the good version. And with Ausar, you're seeing that same on and off again thing that Amon had happen during his rookie season. And then he had, of course, Ausar had it himself. He would be good than bad. But now I think we're switching into more good, like 2/3 to 3/4 of the time. It'll be a good enough line to float that value, to give you late round value in that particular game. And then you're looking at those mid-round games and saying, okay, those are coming with greater frequency. So we'll be watching out for that. And then the Cade Cunningham stuff's great. I mean, all my bet stuff, it's kind of hinging on this as well, but they fashioned this team around Cade. Everything's about Cade. Cade is going to be a top 12 guy for the rest of the season. And, depending on its 8 or 9 cap formats, that's this team in a nutshell. So how long can Cade be that guy? And then it's raised the level of players like Jalen Duren. Malik Beasley thrives in this environment. So can they just keep that going? If they can, Cade's going to be a very big presence down the stretch for fantasy GMs. And then Detroit's going to continue to rise up the standings.
Tobias Harris has picked up his play noticeably. Me and Doc had a conversation a month ago or something. We're like, this guy's a waiver wire guy right now. Always kind of good for 15 and 7 with 3 assists and about 1.8 threes and, just under a block and a steal. And Tobias, like, where'd you go, Tobias? He's back to doing that Philly thing. Again, it's just solid. It's just solid. It's really never more than solid. Like, he doesn't pop up for 30-point games. Kind of like Harrison Barnes down in San Antonio, right? He's the vet, and he just kind of gets him where he fits in. But he's been at a good 15 to 20-point clip here, which, as Bruce said, is actually going to help Cade Cunningham, because obviously you're not all super psyched about your guy like that. So how about the Golden State Warriors here, Brew? Take us into your thoughts on GSW.
I mean, they got lucky. I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. Like this thing was dead on arrival. The whole front office apparatus and ownership, everything just seemed bad. And then the Jimmy Butler saga, if you will, spun their direction. Here's a player with a timeline that's on the same timeline as them. This is a player that fits into the Draymond Green style of playing basketball. They're going to have a toughness that's going to be puncher's chance worthy in the playoffs. I mean, they could hit a team with the right combination of those 3 players doing their thing and some of the young guys stepping up and playing well. And it gives them a shot in the arm for fantasy. I mean, Draymond Green's been a top 25 player over the last few weeks. It's not sustainable, and who knows if Draymond's going to just karate chop somebody and be suspended for 5 weeks. We'll never know with that guy. But that's great news. I mean, this season was tipping the wrong direction for folks. You will start to worry, is Steph Curry going to take more time off with this knee thing, keeping his knees right than we would like as fantasy GMs? No, they're going to make a run, and they need to win games so they can climb up the standings. So this is going to be great. Jimmy Butler's probably a top 40 guy the rest of the way, has some ability to reach up into the top 25. Steph could go on a run. So your Golden State Warriors assets are actually well positioned down the stretch, and that's great.
Their big 3 is going to be very fun to roster down the stretch. Butler in 4 games in that uniform, 21, 7, and 5. The PRA is back. 1.3 steals. That number's got to raise a little bit by my liking. Draymond Green over the last week, all right, 11, 4, and 6, 1.3 blocks, 2.3 steals. Bruce right. Draymond's playing very, very well right now. And Steph Curry over the last week, 35 and 5. And let's just go ahead and tack on 5 3-balls with that stat line. These guys are rolling, okay? Draymond Green, he said some great things about Jimmy Butler, life support or, rescued us or whatever he was CPR for us or whatever euphemism he used. But indeed, it should have never come to that, but that's what's happening. How about Jonathan Kuminga? Brew?
Yeah.
Remember him?
That guy, I tried to buy in a little bit when he got injured. Of course, I was like, okay, let's take advantage of the distressed asset here and let's stash this guy, and thinking it might be his team when he gets back. But that's done. Jimmy Butler showed up. He's done. Kuminga's
do you think Kuminga's going to be a bench player, or do you think they're going to try to get him into the starting 5 with Draymond, Butler, and Curry?
I think he's got to be a bench player. I also think that the minute he starts taking those shots that he wanted to keep taking, I think the guys are gonna rope him in and say, "Hey, no, this ended when Jimmy Butler showed up. Your role changed, my friend, and you will be on another team in another couple of seasons, probably, if I had to guess." Though his timelines, it's nice for Kuminga in the sense that this is not what he wants. He wants to be the guy right now. His camp wants him to be the guy right now, but he really isn't ready to be the guy right now. If he was trying to develop as a basketball player, he would enjoy the 25 minutes per game that he'd be getting in that second team role where he could explore some of the physicality that he brings to the table without upsetting the apple cart. Watching him take over the offense has been like gears stopping in Golden State. And so, yeah, this is not good for him. And Podziemski, since we're talking Warriors, I just don't see it for him. Maybe he can keep something going at a late round value, but they put too many expectations on that guy, and there's just not going to be enough basketballs to go around for him.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. Buddy Hield was rolling, had one bad game. Kerr benches him, starts Podziemski. Podziemski plays huge minutes, has a good game. What if Podziemski hits a 2 for 13? Is Kerr with the worst rotation in all of basketball. Going to go back to Buddy Hield. So I'm just kind of out on that yo-yo. And Jonathan Kuminga's caught up in that now. Brew made an excellent point. With Draymond and Steph, if they don't make the Butler trade, right? And you got Andrew Wiggins. Well, Kuminga could come back and then he could be looked at as a life source for the team, right? He's a splashy, exciting, explosive young player. Maybe he's the shot in the arm that we need. But going to trade for Jimmy Butler, completely cap that. And we know that Draymond Green is the point guard of this team, all right? So that's usage rate going to him. Shots going to Butler and Curry. How does Kuminga fit in with that? He kind of doesn't. So I'm with Brew. I could see Kuminga starting. I could, but I'm not sure about it. But what I am sure about is I don't think Kuminga is going to be a super helpful guy down the stretch. He's not a block steal guy. He's not a three-ball guy, and he really needs maximum minutes to get the PRA up to a level that we can use. All right, Brew, let's move on to the Houston Rockets. I have a question about Amen Thompson, Brew, who is in the midst of a breakout season. He's a most improved player candidate. He's a sixth man of the year candidate. Okay. But Fred VanVleet is healthy and coming back after the break. Jabari Smith is healthy and coming back after the break. This to me means, and Doc has been different on this. He's like, no, man, Amen's staying in that starting five. I don't think so. I think Jabari Smith's going to get his job back. I think Fred VanVleet's going to get his job back. And I think Amen Thompson's going to get his bench job back. And the numbers are going to suffer. And a lot of people are going to pout about it, but Ime Udoka doesn't give a damn about what we think out here in fantasy basketball. I promise you. He doesn't even give a damn about the feelings of his players. They need to do what he says, and that's it. Period. Okay? So I believe that right now, and I hate saying this, but I believe we're in sell high territory with Amen Thompson.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. It just is what it is. And I feel like in the B150, I was able to split the difference with that. I'm also just happy to report that the B150 had him in the top 50 to from the beginning of the season and all the way to the end. So, nice. I mean, we're just swimming with Amen Thompson shares. Baby. Yeah, it is what it is. But you got to know that this is happening no matter what. Jabari Smith has to play next to Alperen Şengün for defensive reasons. So you can't stagger them as effectively as you would like to. You might take a Jabari Smith and play him off the bench and get a couple minutes that way and open things up so that backup center slot can ease the rotation a little bit, but that's not going to happen. And then Fred VanVleet, I do wonder, I had concerns about his knees prior to coming to Houston, and I don't know that that's the culprit here. Maybe just getting a little bit older, a player of his size, you really do have to stay on the cutting edge to be able to get the shots off the way he gets those shots off. Maybe he's the guy that comes back a little bit to accommodate for Amen Thompson to stay at the level that he's at. In fact, that's what I've baked into the cake with the Bruski 150 is that the drop-off is going to be there, but it's not going to crush him. And you should still be bullish in general on Amen Thompson. I think there might be a reverse buy low here, where people are getting super panicked. And if you can send across a value of, let's say, like a top 60 and somebody's panicking about Amen Thompson, I do believe he's got top 50 value the rest of the way. And that's going to be great. And they do need to figure out what he's got because he is a defensive player that needs to be next to Şengün in the playoffs. If you're playing Şengün in the playoffs, you're going to run pick and roll all day long. You need to surround that guy with as many defenders as possible. That's why Tari Eason is going to keep it going. Fred VanVleet, his future is not great in Houston, pardon me. I think he's going to be the loser here, but it is sell high territory for Amen, generally speaking.
Interesting, man. And so Tari Eason's going to be their seventh man. And I think he's going to take a value hit too, Brew. And I love Tari Eason. You're still going to get 8, 9, 10 points, 5 rebounds, the blocks, the steals, the threes, but it's just going to be at a lower rate with him coming off the bench. So I'm kind of looking at not like a waiver wire guy, but I'm looking at him as a sell high.
You got to be able to manage the games off for him. If those things are starting to hurt for whatever reason, you got a weekly lineup, you got to set at the beginning of the week. You don't know what's going to be what. It's a 3-game week, so now he's a 2-game player against a bunch of 4-game guys. This stuff starts to erode at his value. But if you can manage those games off with Tari Eason, and I do think that's one way that they'll creatively handle this logjam of players is they know Tari's going to be taking games off. So that takes a couple 25 minutes out of the equation every other night or so. they're going to look at that kind of stuff. And maybe even Dylan Brooks. Maybe Dylan Brooks, though, he is the walking epitome of Ime Udoka. Like, he's going to have to take a cut to minutes as well. They got good problems in Houston. I do think they're better, though, with one less player than they are with the full staff.
Very interesting take. Ime Udoka's Thibodeau-esque. He has a very short rotation. He's going to rely on 7 main guys. You'll have a couple of satellite guys to get, the Aaron Holidays, the Reed Shepherds, and, maybe, Steven Adams is going to get his run as the backup to Şengün. That's going to be about it. It's like an 8 to 9 man rotation. So they're super deep too. They've got guys that can play that aren't even sniffing the rotation right now. It is Cam, it is Brew, it is the Fantasy NBA today, coming out of the All-Star Game edition, and we're going through 30 teams right now. I have no idea if we're having.
We don't care about the clock,
but we are having a blast. We're live right now. Thank you guys for joining us so much. Hey, just super quick. Let's take a break here and tell the people to download the Sports Ethos app. Okay, it's completely free. Go to your favorite app store. Brew, you have said pretty much weekly with us here that it's your favorite thing in the world right now. Okay, outside of your kids and your wife, right? It's the Sports Ethos app, and it's freaking badass, man.
Thank you for those stipulations, sir. It's crazy. Like I'll be doing like PT. I got to do PT all the time, and I'm just sitting there, and I've got the app, and the app, it just has everything I need. So when it's like lineup lock time and I just need to know what the hell's going on, I don't want to be on Twitter and the For You tab and whatever the hell's happening on that thing. And then on the following tab, or maybe I've got some lists, figured out, and maybe I could scroll through a bunch of lists, but that's like a pain in the butt too. So I just have the app, and the app just takes me to everything I need. And it's got tools where you can do your trade evaluations. You could do your head-to-head stuff. You could do, your team balance stuff, and we're adding to this thing constantly. So we want to get your feedback as well. We built this company for you guys. We want to make sure that when we're building our stuff out, that you guys are getting the most value out of it. Send us notes on Twitter, email, whatever you got, and we'll start to work that stuff into the workflow. But I'm really excited about the app. It just makes life so much easier.
Go to the website as well, sportsethos.com. Subscribe, set up a membership. We'll take great care of you, man. Brew, let's get into the Indiana Pacers. How are you viewing them for the second half from a fantasy perspective?
I don't got a lot here. I was actually a Thomas Bryant take. I didn't think in the year 2025 we would be having a Thomas Bryant take, not after he tried to post up during LeBron's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar record-breaking 2-point shot. That was iconic, Thomas Bryant. But yeah, no, he's in. He's kind of a late round guy right now. And I'm looking at Miles Turner, and I'm thinking like, yeah, he's like a back injury and a neck injury, and like you're Miles Turner, and what's going to happen with this stuff? Do they try to rest him for the playoffs, because they're done without Miles Turner in the playoffs? So maybe there's a world where Thomas Bryant's kind of good at fantasy sports, but I don't know. That's all I got. That's all I got in Indy land.
Me too, legit. Because you've got Mathurin and Nebhard and Neesmith and Jarris Walker. Like, I just can't trust any of them. I like them all a lot. They just don't get the minutes, and Carlisle's very fickle and rides hot hands and stuff like that. Yeah. Siakam. Hallie's going to have these horrible games, and he's going to have a lot of great games, and it's all going to come out in the wash to a great stat line. So it all comes down to Miles Turner. Missing games with this neck injury is concerning. I hope it's not structural and it's just like muscular. And, just time and rest, he can get that out and come back and be a killer player for us down the stretch. I'm heavily invested in Miles Turner. But as Bruce said, if he's out, Thomas Bryant is an immediate pivot. Thomas Bryant's actually been really good in the non-Miles Turner games. The LA Clippers here. Brew, I got a question for you. And I'll give you my answer and then set you up here as we talk about the clip joint. Will Kawhi Leonard ever take a bite out of James Harden, Norman Powell, or Ivica Zubac? Okay. In 15 games played this year, Kawhi Leonard, Brew, is at 16, 4, and 3. That's it. 14 shots over 26 minutes. He is a role player right now, the great Kawhi Leonard. I'm not sure he's going to ascend much beyond these numbers due to minutes restrictions and bubble wrap and kid gloves and blah, blah, blah. I think Harden, Powell, and Zubac are good to go. Do you believe that Kawhi is going to take a bite out of these guys or not?
I do not. I think that there's space as well for Kawhi to be good. and these guys not to have the bite taken out of their minutes, their production, the overall shape of their numbers. So like, I guess it's a situation where all things can be true. I mean, these guys have done it all year. Ivica Zubac has been just on an absolute tear lately. It's like 16-10. Like what the heck's he got? 15-13, 2.5 assists, 2 combined defensive stats, a first round play over the last month. Norm Powell, same thing. And you're right. He probably should have been in the All-Star game. He's basically, they're all so consistent. A little bit of wonder if there's going to be a little bit like too many players. I mean, Ben Simmons had a good line the other day, for Christ's sakes. Like, what the hell was that? Bogey is there and hasn't really done anything. And you're thinking, okay, well, maybe these guys will crowd things out. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I think James Harden will be James Harden. Zubac will be Zubac. Powell will be Powell. And then Kawhi, the only thing that's going for him right now in his quest to be a first-round play again, which he was last season, is that it's the All-Star break. If there's a time and place that he's going to turn it on, it's after the All-Star break. He's got about 1 to 2 weeks before it starts becoming a pipe dream, a lock of a pipe dream that he's not going to be that guy. But he hasn't been that guy, and it makes sense because he took so much time off. But we'll see. He did it last year.
Hey, Brew, no hot take. I believe Ben Simmons is going to rise and become the 5th Beatle, so to
amazing.
speak.
That
where it's been Derek Jones Jr. and maybe Amir Coffey and like these other guys, right? I think Ben Simmons is going to lock up that. Like, I think their closing group is going to have Ben Simmons out there with the core 4. Obviously, when Kawhi Leonard's up and running that night, right? Do you agree with that? Because if you do, we're talking about we're talking about a guy, Ben Simmons, who's going to have fantasy value down the stretch.
It was a key question I had looking at the 30-team analysis we were going to be doing here. Is Ben Simmons somehow going to be useful? And the PRA, maybe more on the R and the A. That's the. But this is a guy who's been getting stats his entire career. It's not pretty. It's not healthy. It's, and there's an angle here. It's like eventually you become undervalued in this league. Eventually, like he has been so overvalued, so overhyped, so this, so that. Now he can go to LA. They got all the amenities in the world there. He's got all the teammates in the world to take the pressure off of him. He can just go out there and pass the ball and rebound and go and do the simple things in the game of basketball and hide from all of the pressure. It's perfect for him. So if you want to take a flyer on Ben Simmons, if those stat categories can help you, yeah, it's viable. It's weird, but it's viable.
I love everything you said right there. So let's keep it moving, folks. The Memphis Grizzlies. Brew, will Ja Morant pop in the second half? I ask because Ja Morant, as wishy-washy as he is 100 on basketballmonster.com right now. Just the regular, you don't change the settings. You just take the rankings of what they are on basketballmonster.com. 100. Brew, Ja Morant should be a top 30 player fantasy-wise in this league. With the talent he has, with the team that he's on. This is a joke, dude. So I don't. He's Ja Morant. He's dead to me in fantasy ball, okay? Talk to me, dude. Like, do you think he's going to pop? Do you think he's going to, take us into the B150 here? What does it say about Ja in the second half?
With Ja, I basically sometimes have to throw a little caution to the wind to the numbers themselves because a lot of folks don't care about percentages. Percentages are part of why this doesn't work out for him. But the turnovers are just insane for him. Interestingly, 81% foul shooting on the year, 44% from the field. Somebody with his shot creation should be able to, and the lack of 3-point shooting should be able to have a higher field goal percentage than that. But this is a guy, he's like a kid with a Ferrari that doesn't know how to drive it. So he's still just trying to figure out how to be an efficient basketball player. And you're still missing games. Your style of play puts you at risk for injury. It's just a weird little puzzle for him. Top 50-ish on the season in 8-cat formats and then 100, of course, in 9-cat. You got to find a way to manage all of that. If those deficiencies are fine for you, then you've got a great player. I think he'll just kind of cruise along doing exactly what he's been doing the entire time. I don't see a dynamic change with this Memphis squad. But it's a little, it's just, it's like unsatisfying because this guy just should be like you said, he should be an early round fantasy play year after year after year. He should be driving teams into the upper echelons of the playoffs, which he's kind of doing. And, when he's on the floor, that is. So it's a weird thing with him. He's doing it, but he's not doing it. And it's not great for fantasy ball. So, I always pass on Morant. And my thing with this Memphis squad is they kind of are what they are right now. They were super interesting earlier in the year because a lot of their players were playing above the cut line, and that stopped. But the one that keeps kind of sitting with me is Santi Aldama. Like, he's available on waiver wires all the time, and he's been, generally speaking, a top 100 guy all season in very low minutes. He looks like he's improved. He's got that kind of player archetype where you're going to get some threes, you get some defensive stats, you get some scoring, you get some rebounding, and it's kind of all good. So if Santi Aldama's sitting there available in your league, I would say he's a must roster player by somebody in your league, and whether or not he's better than your worst player, that might come into play, but give him a look.
Yeah, Santi Aldama's had a breakout year. I like those takes, my friend. The Miami Heat. I believe that Khalil Ware, and I'm going to look, Tyler Hero won the 3-point contest. He had one of the coolest plays in the All-Star games. It was a left side step back three, and he shot that thing straight up in the air, and it just went boosh. And it did. I mean, it was like Luganis hitting the water back in the day and a diving thing in the Olympics. I mean, there was literally no splash at all. The net didn't even move. I'm like, oh my God, it's one of the coolest jumpers I've seen all year. He's wet. He's rolling. That's going to continue. Bam's resurgence is going to continue. Okay. And then you've got Khalil Ware. And I think beyond that, I'm going to need Brew to sell me on some of these other guys, the Robinsons, the Jaquez's, the Roziers, the Jovic's, right? I'm just kind of out because there's so many of them. Wiggins, right? I think he's a waiver wire guy right now. Khalil Ware, Brew, I believe is going to reemerge as a big-time rookie down the stretch. And I also believe that he is going to make the Rookie of the Year conversation very interesting between him and Stephon Castle, because Khalil Ware, I think, Brew ran out of gas here. He hit a midseason rookie wall, needed to gather some steam here. He may be in Cabo as we speak, and young fella, get it in, feel the sand under your feet, right? Meet a fetching young lady and have some fun with her, right? Get away from hoops for a minute. So I think Khalil Ware is going to be absolutely fantastic. And I've got him as a buy low guy right now, and it's kind of like the low key buy low, right? I mean, it's Khalil Ware, okay, right? I mean, it's not Will Chamberlain here, but I like Khalil Ware in the second half. Talk to me about Miami.
Yeah, I was also advocate party a lot, but not so much that you come back and struggle. Our friends out there in the NBA universe, and do all the things that Rick just said. Andrew
Luka
Wiggins
didn't get that message.
Luka is taking it to the next level, and I can appreciate that. But Andrew Wiggins coming to Miami, I kind of settled on he's just going to do the same damn shit he does all the time. In Minnesota, he's a little bit different, but he goes to Golden State. He's just there, right? He scores his 18 points. He has a couple threes, and he's just going to have a couple rebounds, and that's going to be that. Like he just doesn't. It's like he doesn't care enough to push up and be like the star or to try to take the thing over. And he's just going to do that. So I think he's just going to be that. And then how does that affect the Nikola Jovic's? I think he's probably the first one to take a seat, because in fantasy leagues, because Wiggins is there sucking the oxygen out of the box score, Khalil Ware will survive no matter what. I think even if he's bad, he's going to get enough blocks and threes and big man stats to make it all worthwhile. And they want to play this guy. And it's interesting that he didn't make the Rising Stars game because he's clearly one of the best rookies in the league right now. So there's going to be a little chip on his shoulder for that, I would imagine. And Miami wants to see what this 4-man crew of Bam and Ware and Jovic can do. And to me, what that means is, there's going to be a lot of noise here while everybody's healthy, but they're going to make an effort to make that trio productive and have time on the court. Now, Eric Spoelstra might actually scuttle any great plan because he says he doesn't like what he sees and he puts somebody on the bench, puts them in their place. But I do really think that they favorably look at that trio. So I'm buying into Jovic while the going is bad right now. I don't think he's going to be some top 75 stud, but I do think he's got late round, maybe top 100 potential. Ware has top 50 potential. Ware has top 40 potential if it all goes well. And I don't think they'll push Bam through any injury at all. So you could look at a circumstance down the stretch. If anything weird happens with Bam, there's just an increased chance that you get all the wear, all the time. And then you get that big top 40 boost that people thought he was given when they got him in those first couple weeks. That's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with this thing. So I like Miami, and I don't like any of the guys you said. I don't like Duncan. I don't like Jaquez. I think these guys, they got usurped. You got Davion Mitchell, who they love. Of course they love Davion Mitchell. Why didn't you love Davion Mitchell? He's the WAC Fantasy Hall of Famer. He doesn't get any stats, but he gets you 37 minutes, but he gives you great defense, and that might actually suck the air out of the box score a little bit there too in Miami. But those guys, I'm out on all of them.
It's just too many guys, like the Golden State thing. I don't trust it, and I don't like Thursday night. Yeah, I'll throw Jovic in my lineup, but it's nothing more than that. Just get in, get out, churn and burn with the Miami Heat. All right, it is Cam, it is Brew, it is our 30-team fantasy extravaganza. By the way, Aaron Bruski's B150 is out. Check it out. Okay, go to sportsethos.com and dial that up. Download the app, the Sports Ethos app. It's free and totally amazing, and it's going to help you win fantasy championships in the three major sports here, NBA, MLB, and NFL. The Milwaukee Bucks. Brew, you go first as I lob the ball over to you. This is Trae Young lobbing to Wemby in the All-Star game on this one. Go.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. And then I think, who was it? Jokic could have lobbed to Trae, but I think Wemby stole it. I think that the Bucks are boring, and Kyle Kuzma might mess around and get some late round value, but really maybe it's not as boring as I'm making it out to be. Bobby Portis might go off. Brook Lopez might go off. I think that the two studs, they're going to rest them as often as they can. I don't think it's going to be like egregious because I think they're going to want to get as high a seed as possible. I think everybody in Milwaukee knows that this run is really important. So that works to rest those two stars, and that works to bring the Brook Lopez's and the Bobby Portis's up into the fold if they're not rested as well. But those guys are they got a lot of pop. Like Lopez can be a top 30 guy just in a drop of a hat. Portis has done this in the past where he's had top 50 runs. So it's more interesting than I make it out to be, but those are the two guys to watch out for.
I believe that Kyle Kuzma being on the Bucks is going to be bad news for Bobby Portis. Mm-hmm. I don't know about waiver wire, but I think Bobby Portis in 10-team leagues, you're going to be able to go ahead and cut him. In 12-team leagues, I think he's going to go to the end of your bench. And, if you got to do what you got to do, then you got to do what you got to do, right? But Kyle Kuzma is a similar player. They both play the four. They both pop threes. They're not block steal guys, but they grab some boards and flirt with double doubles. They're just very similar players to me. And I like the get from Milwaukee because they needed more star power. And I was going to say Kuzma's got more upside than Bobby Portis, but I don't know about that because when Portis plays in these non-Giannis games, he goes off. But that has not happened since Kyle Kuzma went to Milwaukee. Not like those old no Giannis explosions.
Wait till Bobby Crazy Eyes knocks his ass out. That's good. Kyle's going to take a triple step back three, and then Bobby's just going to knock him out. Problem solved.
And then it's Bobby time again. It'll be Bobby at 5-star forum. Portis over the last week here, the Kuzma game. So Kuzma with Milwaukee has been 16, 8, and 2. Not bad in 33 minutes. Portis over that stretch has gone 11, 9, and 3 with nothing else. No threes, no blocks, no steals. So you can see like he's teetering on the waiver wire edge here. Just saying, keep your eye on that, and don't hold on to Bobby too long. If Bobby's giving you 7-5 one night, 10-5 the next night, 9-3 the night, let him go. Okay, it's obvious that Kuzma's taking that bite out of him. Let's move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Brew, and huge questions for me. Okay, it's Dante DiVincenzo and it's Julius Randle. Dante is out with a left great toe sprain. He was set to miss at least 3 weeks. That dates back to January 24th. We're basically at that 3-week moment right now, okay? Is he coming back around the corner? And you've got Julius Randle here reevaluated with the groin injury on February 19th, which is 2 days from now, as we record this on February 17th. It's a right adductor strain for Randall. DiVincenzo's return might come a little sooner than Julius's based on that intel right there. But this to me is the pivot point. We know Gobert. We know what Ant-Man is going to do. But these guys have these ripple effects, Brew, to Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels. And again, I'm very curious what the B150 says on this and how much you baked in DNPs for Dante and Randall and how you're evaluating Naz and why am I blanking on the other guy here, Brew? Naz and Jaden McDaniels.
And Jaden, I hate to say it, I really do. And sorry, Minnesota fans, but I really think until we hear that Julius Randle is either more injured or going to be seeing a reduced role off the bench in the 20 to 25 minute range, it's all bad news. And into the B150, I had to bake that into that thing, and I hated every second of it. Now, I didn't go and just crush these guys because it's an adductor injury, and I really do think, especially now that the ownership change has been made, there's a lot going on with that. The deal to bring in Randall being negotiated by multiple parties and a deal that created flexibility at best, like that gives you opportunities as a franchise to hang a left or hang a right. Now, I don't think anything's going to happen where Randall just like gets waived or ends up on the free agent, the buyout block. But you can kind of move off of this. If you want to have a good playoff run, Minnesota, you can move off of this. If you want your team to be happy, you can move off of this. How does a Julius Randle coming off an adductor injury have the explosiveness to do anything more than a worse version of what he's been doing out there, and all of the disaster across the box score with that? So I think Minnesota, they got an opportunity to make this right, but I don't think they will. I think that they'll just roll them out there for 28 minutes, 30 minutes a game, bench them in the fourth quarters when it's clearly not working, and it'll just be sad and dreary. And but then eventually, if it's not working, it will break. And I do think that at that point in time, the Jaden McDaniels, the Naz Reids, Anthony Edwards possibly deciding this last third of the season is going to be the third of the season that everybody want him to have the whole year.
Right.
And it's just sitting there waiting for Dante DiVincenzo somehow returns and he becomes an addition, to the team that makes everybody else better. They just fit in the right cubby holes and it's all perfect. Or they bring Randall back and it's just a bit of a mess. And that's been bad for those guys. So I baked it in there. You can find out where they actually land. It's sad.
Julius Randle with the groin injury, and again, he'll be reevaluated in a couple of days. Maybe they get good news. Jaden McDaniels has been so fun with the goodies he's been putting up, the blocks, the steals, the threes, the 30-point games. We're seeing like, damn, dude, you can really play. You might be more than a 3-and-D guy. I'm really intrigued by that. And I am a Julius Randle apologist. You guys know this by now. But I would love to see Jaden McDaniels in the role that he's in right now. I would love to continue to see Naz Reid in the role that he's in right now, where you're not playing behind Julius Randle, you're playing in front of him. But they're not going to bench Julius Randle. They're not. And so for me, it's just enjoy it with Jaden. Jaden's going to become a waiver wire guy when Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo come back. He'll be a waiver wire guy at that point. And Naz Reid obviously is still going to be a roster guy for you. And I love what Bruce said about Anthony Edwards. Are you finally going to like really consistently click in? Because we've been waiting on it. We've gotten glimpses, but like every night where you go Kobe and Jordan on these fools. Let's move on to the New Orleans Pelicans. Brew, do you believe that Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum will be shut down or not?
Yeah, I do. I think with Zion, he's saying the quiet parts out loud, which teams or players and teams, they don't do that until the milk's gone real bad. The milk's bad. I think he's probably moved in the offseason. That's just, just reading tea leaves or whatever. And then CJ, he's a good guy to have around in a situation like this because he keeps it from getting too messy. He's not going to drive an exceeding amount of wins. Obviously, their win-loss record is what it is right now. But yeah, eventually I think they're just going to want to go down roster, see what guys like Jordan Hawkins can do, Brandon Boston. They got a real interesting waiver wire list right now. And they got Trey Murphy at the top of this thing, just being freaking awesome. And I think they want to explore what Trey Murphy is actually capable of. Now they are in that clique of 3 teams battling for the 2 spot in the tank race, with Washington a couple games away for the 1 slot. I love how we can call the action like that. But the Trey Murphy engine of first round value, second round value, depending on your format, I think that thing keeps going until there's an injury to sustain or to justify, okay, hey, we're going to pull you out of this thing. So people will kind of be waiting with bated breath on that. But you got Carlo Makovich has shown a couple of decent games over the past week. Yves Missi injured-ish. We don't really know the nature of this injury, and we'll find out here real soon. But he's got a clear path. He's had a clear path all season to be a late-round guy. Brandon Boston, Jose Alvarado. Alvarado's been at the top of so many pickup lists lately. He's that guy. He's good like that. I'm just so concerned that he can handle this many minutes. He's never been able to handle this many minutes. Kelly Olynyk might get dusted off. Who knows if he's got the mileage left in him. Javonte Green's been on the radar. Eventually, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl might be a silly season guy. And then Jordan Hawkins, I think they do want to see what he can do, but he hasn't been able to stay on the floor. There's a ton of players that you can pick from on this roster that have potential at rest of season value.
Indeed, man. I love Jose Alvarado down the stretch. And he's finally start to hit that heater and put up these Jose games I've been talking about, the big assist lines, the really strong steals, the good threes. He's a goody guy, man, and he's fun to watch. Not that that really matters. It's fantasy. We care about numbers, not optics. But Jose is going to be just a badass in the second half. Go get him if he's still on waivers. Makovich is conditional, okay? But when/if Zion is shut down, he's good to go. And even if Zion is in there, right, on the Zion back-to-back thing, like one of those games is going to be a Makovich game. The other one might not, right? But if Missi has to miss time, God forbid, I believe Makovich is going to pick up a lot of that slack. In the game, so many games, Brew. I believe it was New Orleans' last game before the break, the game that Missi got hurt. And Andre, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe Makovich either started the second half, or I do know this because I was watching the game. He was with the finishing group. Okay, because Missi was out and because other guys were out. So Makovich, keep your eye on him. It's conditional, but you got to keep your eye on him because he's a really, really good blend of blocks and 3 balls. Brew, you go first here on the New York Knickerbockers as we run down 30 teams here on the Fantasy NBA today.
My analysis in the B150 was basically that Tom Thibodeau plays high-stakes fantasy leagues, and he just drafts all his guys. And he's just going to keep pushing them out there and pushing them out there. And basically it's, does OG Anunoby have a bad right foot sprain? Is anything else with that elbow acting up again? Injuries are the reason that I've faded him the last couple of years. Now it's happening. So we'll keep an eye on that. Karl Anthony Towns with the knee. He ain't going to not play. He's going to go out there. He's going to push. He's going to put up the same numbers that he's been putting up all year. But, as we've seen with Tom Thibodeau players forever, they eventually break. Will it happen this year, next year, the year after that? We don't know. But those are the only 2 things going on in New York that interest me. They're a machine. They just cruise along. They're never going to stop. It's great stuff.
Yeah, it is. They're very cut and dried from the fantasy perspective. I'm looking at OG Anunoby versus Precious Achiuwa. OG with the foot injury. He missed 5 straight before the break. And it's very, very easy. As long as OG is out, Achiuwa is on your roster, in your lineup, you're getting goodies. The minute that OG Anunoby comes back, send Precious Achiuwa back to the waiver wire, because then he'll be in that McBride, Payne, and Achiuwa bench thing, and there will be very minimal goodies there. I believe, Brew, that Chet Holmgren is ready for takeoff in the second half. Played 30 minutes in his last game, had a double-double. He had a 5-block game recently against the New Orleans Pelicans. There's not a lot actionable here, okay? I might sell high with Hartenstein, okay? Because the rebounds are coming down. Guys, look at the rebounds, okay? As we go like 1 week out, 2 weeks out, a month out, and you're going to see a steady progression down. Why? Chet Holmgren's playing now, okay? J-Dub may lose a point or 2. It's not going to be a huge hit. and you'll be able to keep them moving pretty good with that. But Hartenstein, to me, is a sell high guy here because I see Chet really hitting an ascent in the second half. Brew, what you got on OKC?
You're probably right. Let's just stipulate you're probably right on the Hartenstein sell high. It's just so logical. It just makes sense. And these are the kinds of things that almost always happen. But I'll say this. They need to learn how to play with those two next to each other in the playoffs. And I think they'll use the regular season to do that. The other thing with Hartenstein is he is a Swiss Army knife out there. He can run all sorts of different actions. He's just incredibly versatile. He can cover smaller players. He can cover bigger players. So I really do think that maybe there's even reverse buy low potential here with him. And then the additional thing that's great for every player on this roster is, and if you're keeping kind of track of how good this Thunder team is overall, they just demolish opposing teams' box scores. And then their box score is great. It's a great thing if you're on the Oklahoma City Thunder because you're going to have a great box score no matter what. So Chet, Hartenstein, hell, even Kaysen Wallace and Aaron Wiggins and Lou Dort, these guys probably will still be productive. If you've ridden the bottom of that rotation and gotten some long-term late-round value and stacked that over the entire season into something that's better than it really kind of looks like on a day-to-day basis, congrats. But this team is historically good. I think there's going to be maybe 50 or 100 teams in the history of the NBA that have been as good as this team is this year. And it's going to be a real treat to watch them in the playoffs. They've got to prove that they can do it. And there are only a couple teams out there that have the punching power to make that a game. So we'll be watching for that. And as far as Holmgren goes, just how many games does he play? How many does he take off? He's ready to go though. He's I think the nature of that injury and then him getting out on the floor, it's a very clear-cut situation. He's ready to go and he's going to be a top 40 guy, if not a top 20 guy, if he plays more rather than less games.
He came back just in time to get seasoned and lathered up to help you win a championship. It's Rick Kamla and Aaron Bruski. We are aiding you in that endeavor as well here on the Fantasy NBA today. Download the Sports Ethos app from your favorite app store and go to sportsethos.com and subscribe. The MLB draft guide is out. Check that out. Your boy Cam is doing some contributions with that as well. Let's move on to the Orlando Magic Brew as we break down 30 teams. It's our 30-team All-Star Break Fantasy Extravaganza. What you got to say about Orlando?
Man, Paolo Banchero was ranked at the top 400 the other day. It was obviously the percentages and just I think he was shooting like 30 or 35% on like 5 million shots and not hitting his foul shots. And he's still very good. He's just an amazing basketball player. If you can manage those percentages, the conversation with him changes significantly. So you'll see in the rankings, their rotor ranks. But you guys can figure it out and do the math. If you can manage that, then it's a completely different situation. My feel is that Paolo's basically trying to do what he should have been doing if he didn't get injured, which is trying to figure out where his ceiling is. Like how high can he go? How many shots can he take during a game? How much can he dominate a game? The results haven't been good for Orlando because that's not really great for guys like Franz Wagner. It's not great for guys down roster to be watching that much shot taking by one player. But it just feels like that's part of what he needs to do to see how high he can go. And long-term, the strategy makes sense. I do think Orlando's been clicking in lately and you're starting to see them normalize. I think the shots for Banchero will come back a little bit. The shots for Wagner will go up. Guys like Goga, I think that's probably my most intriguing player to watch in this. He was at a top 50 level for about a month, maybe more. They were running a lot of offense through him. Yes, the guys were gone, but I think in terms of facilitation, this group can get stagnant really quick. If you have a big man like Goga who can run dribble handoff and do a couple things out there, that makes you more versatile. And that was what got them knocked out of the playoffs last season is they couldn't make a shot to save their lives. So I do wonder, do they first get Paolo figured out, then get Franz figured out, and then they say, okay, Goga, we want you to be the third thing here and make the engine go. So Goga right now not performing well in the lineup, getting you some defensive stats, not much more. He had 3 shots in a game the other day. I think the Wendell Carter Jr. stuff is foggy enough to where that the team probably wishes that Carter could be better than he really is, and he offers something a little bit different than Goga, but it's not that much better than what Goga's doing. So I think the pendulum is going to shift from Wendell Carter back over to Goga. And so if Goga's available in your leagues, I'd say go out and get him, because you don't really get top 100, top 75 upside very often, especially out of big man. So Goga's on my radar, but really it's just like, what's Paolo going to do the rest of the way? Is he going to take, I don't know, is he attempting 18 shots over the last 2 weeks, 19 shots a game? Was he going to crank it up to like 22 or 23 or something? I really kind of figure he might, just to see how high he can go. And in the right setup, that might actually be very good for fantasy GM. So it's a lot of different things at once in Orlando.
Jalen Suggs is the key here for me. And I believe Jalen Suggs is a good buy low for you guys, because about 16, 4-4 PRA, about 2.5 threes, about 1.5 steals, blocks as well. A really good fantasy line. He's having his breakout year that has been interrupted significantly by 2 injuries here. I don't know. He's got this quad contusion. I mean, it's a quad contusion. You missed 3 weeks. What the hell? Did they cave in your femur? I mean, what's going on here? Hopefully not. But when he comes back, his stat lines are going to be fantastic. Pardon me. Orlando's going to win more, and the whole thing's going to come to a good-looking boil. I was going to say beautiful boil, but that'd be what OKC is doing and what Cleveland is doing. So Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, KCP, Goga, Wendell Carter Jr., De Silva, they've all flashed. I've maybe messed with most of those guys at some point this year, and I'm good. I'm pushing back from the dinner table. I'm good. Y'all knock yourselves out. If these guys spike on a consistent basis and we notice a pattern of consistent production, I could change my opinion. But right now, I'm out on all of those guys. Suggs needs to return now for Orlando. How much will Joel Embiid play in the second half, Brew, as we get into the Philadelphia 76ers? Rather large question, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, you, me, in the NBA world, and probably Joel himself. I think it's all good until they throw in the towel, and I kind of wonder if Paul George is maybe the swing piece here. He just does not look like he's into it at all, like borderline, like out to lunch. Yeah, some of these injuries definitely play a role. I think the finger thing is definitely real. It's not like he's sandbagging there, but I think this wasn't what he signed up for. It's got this bad vibe around it, and so for me, the question of like, actually, am I going to push through any of this stuff? Am I going to like give it my all? And Paul George has been a kind of a softer player his entire career, so it just doesn't profile well. And now you're a decision maker in Philly, and you're thinking, okay, are we really going to push for this thing? Are we going to put Joel Embiid out there when maybe we should just rest and regroup and try to figure out what to do with the next 2 years of his career? These are really interesting questions, in addition to the fact that you go out and you get somebody like Quentin Grimes, and he's like kind of perfect to eat a bunch of minutes for a team that's not trying to win. And some of these moves that they made at the deadline, I didn't think they were like, this is going to put us over the top kind of moves. Yeah, there were moves to make you better, but they really did scream like, okay, we're just going to throw a couple guys out here and just get through the end of this season. I think as long as they're in contention and they haven't turned it over to not caring anymore, then he's going to play every other game. And that's a disappointment for where he was drafted. A lot of people, including myself, I took a chance, a couple spots at Joel. Kind of had to. If you weren't doing it, somebody that you respected and feared in a fantasy league was going to do it. So you couldn't kind of just like get out of this whole discussion altogether. Wished I hadn't. But that said, as we get into the stretch run here, those teams that have him and that are in contention still, I'm like, okay, let's go. Joel Embiid. You know, I'm ready for him to come back and play. But that team as a whole, there's a lot of interesting players. I mentioned Kelly Oubre at the top. He has been just crushing it lately. He's been a top 50 kind of a guy. He profiles to finish as a top 50 kind of a guy. He profiles as a guy. I mean, he's getting like 38 minutes a game right now over the last month or so. He's just going to be there no matter what. Whether the Joel comes back and the whole band is playing, he's going to be there. If Joel's not there, he'll just be there. He'll get his 38 minutes and be one of the leading shot takers on the team. Kelly Oubre, nobody in the season came into the season thinking this guy's going to be a top 50 kind of a guy. Here we are. Quentin Grimes, completely all over the waiver wire action this last week. Folks are expecting him to play like 27, 28, 29 minutes down the stretch. You got Justin Edwards is an interesting young player. You got Ricky Council's an interesting young player. Jeff Doughton Jr. for your deep leagues out there is an interesting player, but only if they turn the page. And Tyrese Maxey, by the way, is a top 5 kind of a fantasy guy this year. So lots of fun stuff going on there, not named Joel Embiid.
Brew, I believe Joel Embiid's going to play quite a bit in the second half here. Philly has nothing to tank for. They're going to continue to try to win and get some aura, some vibe, some life, okay? They've just been a carcass of a team all year. I believe that Joel Embiid is whining about his knee and talking about I might need more surgery to lessen the boos. Joel Embiid is getting booed in Philadelphia right now, and I believe this is a strategic card that he is playing to try to gain some empathy and get some love and some sympathy from fans. Oh, man, he might have knee surgery again. I'm not going to boo him tonight. I'm not buying it, okay? If Joel Embiid needed to have surgery again, and if it was really, really bad, would he be cleared to play right now by the team? For the love of God, no. This is Joel Embiid, okay? For every game he's played in his career, he's missed a game in his career. It's literally like 50-50 with games played and games not played, all right? So I believe I believe that's spin, okay? That helps us in fantasy. I believe Joel. Now, look, I'm not telling you to buy low on him. I don't trust him like that. I'm saying if you've got Joel Embiid, I think you're going to get more games from him down the stretch than maybe you were accounting for. No, you will not get any back-to-backs. It really sucks that Podcast P has taken over Paul George and swallowed him and devoured him like Travis Swift has done Travis Kelce, because Travis Kelce is a disinterested, go-through-the-motions, washed-up former all-time great. Hey, kind of like Paul George. And I do believe that Quentin Grimes is a major thing, Brew. These 4 games with Philadelphia, okay? He is at 17, 6, and 4, 1-1 in the blocks and steals, 2.3 threes, 33 minutes played, okay? He's been 10 or more points in all 4 games in the Sixer uniform. Had a huge spike game before the end of the first half, okay? Quentin Grimes is a thing. Handpicked by Daryl Morey. He fits his profile of a quick, darty, three-point shooting, defensive-minded guard, that hustles. I mean, hello, he's got a lot of those guys. McCain, Maxey, that's a Morey thing, okay? So Quentin Grimes is going to play, and he's going to be a really nice player for you down the stretch. All right.
Let me just jump in there. They were talking big game in Philly. Like Josh Harris, owner of the Sixers, was interviewed, and he was talking like we're shoving chips in the middle. Like we believe that we can make it. And I think you don't make those statements. You don't go front and center on this team for this team as bad as they've been. I do think that with there being a 1.5, I believe, games out of the play-in and then kind of maybe having this strategy all season long that they're going to be in a play-in. And they got to win the plan. If you can't win the plan, you don't deserve to win anything anyway. And they're just going to kind of make lemonade with this whole thing. If they're in it and they're committed, Joel Embiid will need to play a lot of basketball games. And you might get the kick that if you didn't get the goodies all season long with Joel Embiid, okay, that's fine. That sucks. You kind of dust yourself off and move on. But if you get the kick at the end during the fantasy playoffs, well, hey, maybe it was worth it at least a little bit. So folks can be happy about that, but he will absolutely need to play a lot for them to get into the plan and then actually be good. And his game is suffering right now. That passed up 3-pointer that he had the other day where he just said, I don't want to take the big shot. He's in his own head in a big way. So all your talk about, possibly, lessening the pressure and the booze and all that stuff, that's exactly what's going on. So yes, Joel Embiid could be a swing piece here down the stretch.
Hopefully he plays a lot of games and helps y'all win championships, man. The Phoenix Suns have a man named Bol.
Oh, Bol, baby.
Drew, you go first, man. How are you psyched or what?
It's Bol Bol. I got big on Bol Bol. Was it 2 seasons ago or I think it was last season, 2 seasons ago. I don't remember.
Denver or Orlando when you?
It was Orlando Bol Bol, and then I think it was leading into Phoenix Bol Bol. And then here's the thing: it's like, you got to see how this thing goes. Like if you have Bol Bol on your team, like I would not have Bol Bol on my team and not see how it goes. Like 7'3" or whatever he is with that profile and doing what he does on the court. You don't have a lot of players that do that. It changes the game when he's out there. if he can actually hold up his side of the line and do what he needs to do out there and be, as Michael Malone was praising him during that early Orlando run, be that guy. He's a part of something. And so now here come the Phoenix Suns. And I think Bradley Beal has to be persona non grata at that in the Phoenix locker room. He did what he needed to do, and I think everybody respects that. I think everybody respects him as a basketball player, but I think the writing was on the wall when this team was made. But when Bradley Beal wouldn't make the deal, that was the end for this iteration of the Phoenix Suns, and that everybody knows. And I think that's why they go, all right, we got Bol Bol. Why not try it and see if it works? And they've tapped the brakes with it a little bit, but they've also indicated, Mike Budenholzer and people around the team have indicated that they're going to see this thing through a little bit and see what he's got. You get a big break. That's a little scary because, maybe this was just a pre-All-Star thing and they're going to come to their senses and who the hell would do the Bol Bol thing, right? And but Bol Bol during that time, he went out there and he made big shots and he was good. He had 10 points, 1.4 triples, 4 boards and change, 2.6 combined steals and blocks in 19.9 minutes over the last 7 games. That's been a top 20 to 35 value over the last 4 games with 3.3 blocks per game in those 4 contests. But he was taking big shots and making them. He's always done that. He's always been aggressive with the shot taking, and that's been why he gets yanked when it doesn't look so good. But he makes them different. And I think next to Kevin Durant, if you have Nick Richards on the floor to be the muscle, Kevin Durant can kind of downsize and play the 3 a little bit. You got a lot of arms and legs out there, and at least it makes Phoenix interesting with what they're trying to do out there. If you're going to trot out Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, the same crew as normal, and we've seen what that looks like, it's not working. I'm not excited about that at all. But if you tell me, hey, throw Bol Bol in the mix, I go, hey, you know what? Maybe Phoenix can get weird and do something in a first or second round playoff series and shock the world. But I'm not going to bet on it. But it may, at least it's a puncher's chance. And I think that might be into the thinking of Phoenix, the Phoenix organization, is that just, hey, we got to try this. So if they do late round, mid round, maybe top 20 to 35 for certain stretches, it could be a silly season kind of a thing going on for Bol Bol, but you got to love it.
Bol Bol, I'm bullish, man. I've got lots of shares of Bol Bol at this point. Even at the end of the break in a couple of the shallow leagues that I'm in 2. They're like M&Ms you throw in your mouth, Yahoo public leagues. And so I was able to go out and pick up Klingon and pick up Bol Bol, right? I mean, they're public Yahoo leagues. But check your waiver wire, okay? For Bol Bol and for Klingon. Hey, we'll get to Portland here in just a second. I am bullish on Bol Bol in the second half. They are wide open at center. Nick Richards has a double-double one game and then 3 duds, okay? So to me, there's playing time there. God forbid Kevin Durant gets hurt, but we know it happens a lot. I mean, then Bol Bol's going to really be unleashed. But Coach Bud is clearly desperate for anything, okay? In case of emergency, break glass. Hey, Bol Bol, come on in here. He's been a difference maker, guys. He just needs minutes. In Orlando, to me, I mean, the coaches have said otherwise, right? Okay, and they're the ones that matter. But even in all of the stops that Bol Bol has been in, he's shown glimpses of being like Wemby's little brother or something like that, right? With a similar skill set and an, oh my God, 7'3", long arms and legs. Like, what am I watching right now? Over the last week, Bol Bol's gone 16 and 9, 3 blocks, 1.5 steals, 2 threes. That is a goodie line, folks. That's 6.5 fantasy goal digits per game from Bol Bol over the last week. So, Brew, let's get to the Portland Trail Blazers. And a very, very key thing to jump out in our conversation here is the fact that we all thought Portland was going to shut it down. They didn't. Chauncey Billups pushed all his chips in the middle of the table, won a bunch of games, shot way out of the Cooper flag thing, even able to sniff the play-in tournament. But now they've hit the skids with Jeremy Grant out, DeAndre Ayton out, and Scoot Henderson out, okay? So to me, this is a very interesting team that may get a late Cooper flag, or they may get Scoot Henderson back for the first game out of the break. We know Ayton's going to miss a long period of time here. Jeremy Grant, I guess, could come back after the break. So we're at a crossroads with the Portland Trail Blazers, Brew, and frankly, I don't know which direction they're going to go. Do you?
No, but I do know that, you've got a lot of competition at the bottom of the West. And Dallas could be a free faller. Minnesota could be a free faller. Golden State could push up the rankings. That's 3 teams inside the top 10 right now, 2 going down, 1 going up. Sacramento, a lot of issues there. We'll talk about them in a second. But with maybe an additional slot opening up, Phoenix, depending on how they play, San Antonio is going to be making a push. Portland needs to win this week. They need to win the following week. If those 2 things don't happen, then you're going to be looking at basically not a tank, but they're not going to push any of their injured players out there. They're going to go into player development. All of their pet projects will get all of the minutes. Probably Scoot Henderson, probably Shadon Sharp. I would imagine Anthony Simons might be pulled back a little bit. I think that that's their best guard trade asset. And so maybe they just say, hey, you know what, let's not chance anything. Let's get you through the season nice and healthy. But really, this is about Donovan Clingan. Like, how high can he climb? You know, it was always so tempting to drop him during all of this time, and you just can't do it. You can't drop a guy like this because he just steps in. And what did he go for this last week here? He's got 12 and 10, 13 and 10, 2.3 blocks, good foul shooting in this segment, and 71% from the field. And that's in 19 minutes. I do worry about his knee. I think that his knee is probably underreported in terms of how healthy it is or not. But I mean, he's locked in and he's going to go. It's just how high can he go the rest of the way? And I don't know if there's anything here for fantasy GMs to actually do. I think the hype is so loud that you can't really get in on Donovan Clingan at a good price point. I don't think you want to sell Donovan Clingan at this point in time because I don't think people are willing to pay what he could theoretically be worth. You just sit back and enjoy the ride. They got mute.
My bad on that. I agree with everything you said right there, Brew. And I also believe that, you mentioned Shaden Sharp, and Scoot is not like a long-term injury. I'd be actually surprised if he's not ready to go coming out of the break. And Jeremy Grant as well. But eventually, like, Jeremy Grant never finishes the season, right? What's up with that? But I'm not telling you to pick this guy up right now, but be ready for Delano Banton, especially in deep leagues, because he is going to be that silly season guy. Like, it's Delano Banton, he never plays, right? Well, depending on how this goes, he may be. Denny Abdi has hit a wall and his play has suffered, okay? Tumani Kamara just keeps doing his thing. So I'm still in with those guys and still hanging in there with them. There's just, as we sit here, there's really just too many questions. We don't know when Grant's coming back. We don't know when Scoot's coming back. And to me, that hinges because they can keep the thing rolling here without Ayton. They just play Clingan. And frankly, with the defense that he brings and the activity, he makes them a more competitive basketball team than even DeAndre Ayton doing his double-double thing. All right, so let's move on here, Brew, to the Sacramento Kings. Brew, what you got on the Kings?
Well, I mean, we saw the Keon Ellis game that everybody, got geeked up about 2 games ago. And then the Kings proceeded to, they said, and it was fun. Like, CJ McCollum was legitimately, it felt like, scared of Keon Ellis. And like, every time he caught the ball, he's like, this guy, I don't know what to do with him. I got to give the ball away. And so that was the experience in game 1. Game 2, I think CJ went for like 48. And Doug Christie's like, I don't know what to do here. What do? I don't know how to stop this guy. Maybe Keon, you could play 20 minutes in this game. Everybody in Sacramento they're like beyond me. Like, I've been shouting this from the rooftops since last year, blah, 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 and a big Bruski 150 ranking. But Sacramentans are legitimately pissed. Like, Monty was on one of the local radio stations and he's getting grilled over it. So they know what the problem is. They know that this is like, it's like obvious to basketball people everywhere. They know this, but they're going to play their starters anyway because they're too afraid to tell their starters that, hey, you got to take a seat on the bench. You got to get less minutes. This is real. And they're going to lose. They've already lost De'Aaron Fox over this. And the thinking is this: if you think De'Aaron Fox hasn't already made his decision and he's just basing it all on winning, and you don't play this future all-star, Keon Ellis, yeah, I said it. If you don't play this guy and you're trying to keep Fox, well, you just ruined your entire franchise over it because he's the one guy that balances out this team. He shuts down the opposing team's best player. He can play offense. He hits threes practically better than anybody else on the team. And he makes the right play all the time. I mean, it's a total difference maker on the floor, and you blew it. You blew it. You lost Fox, and you got Zach LaVine back. Zach LaVine's not looking so great. He's a good basketball player, but he's got a lot of injury history. He's got a big contract. So for De'Aaron Fox, you got that and some picks. That was a bad choice, Sacramento. You guys really blew that one. But now going forward in the last third of the season, I mean, I think it's more of the same for Keon Ellis. And interestingly, Keon has more value than Zach LaVine has had over the last 2 months in 9 cat leagues. When you add the games played into the mix, he's had 29 games. Zach's had 25. Keon Ellis is a top 45 fantasy play based on 2.1 triples, 1.6 steals, 0.7 blocks. He gets you some points, a handful of rebounds, a handful of assists, great percentages. It's not poppy in the PRA, but it's poppy in the threes, the steals, and the blocks. So he's a very valuable fantasy play when it comes to that stuff. And I guess the thing is this. At the end of it, if one player gets hurt, Keon gets to go for 28, 30, 32 minutes, and then they win. And then it kind of can steamroll down the way, down the rest of the stretch. That's the upside scenario here. But the current 24-minute per game sample that I just outlined right there, that's plenty valuable. So it's good now, and it can get really good down the stretch. If the steals and blocks and the threes don't matter to you for whatever reason, then the value definitely goes down. But he will step in and he will be that winning force, and he'll get a lot of momentum as long as they let him play. But right now they're going to let the starters play 35 minutes a game, and that'll be that. But it's been good so far, but it has the potential to be great.
Most teams want to stagger their starting lineup a little bit, go with 4 offensive guys or 3 offensive guys and 2 defensive guys, or 4 offensive guys and 1 defensive guy. Sacramento's a 5-0 team. They've got 5 offensive players, no defensive players in their starting 5, and they're always going to just tread water and be around 500. Elite offense, horrible defense. Hello, that's been Sacramento for damn 30, 40 years, okay? Offensive explosion. I mean, even in the Bibby, Weber, Vlade days, I don't remember them ever being like top half of the league defensively. They were just so elite offensively with that Rick Adelman offense. But in terms of, look, I got Zach LaVine and Malik Monk as sell high guys, especially Malik Monk, because he's going to continue to have his value erode, I believe, as the season goes along. If you watched the CJ McCollum game, the Sacramento-New Orleans game, DeMar DeRozan bogarting that you-know-what down the stretch. And I love DeMar DeRozan. He's one of the most clutch players I've ever seen. But that was gross. It was the Zach LaVine game, and he didn't even get the rock the whole down the stretch. 4 straight possessions, 4 straight shots by DeMar DeRozan. All of them misses, okay? And again, I love DeMar DeRozan, but that is what LaVine and Monk are contending with, okay? Get out on them now while you can. San Antonio. Let's move on to the Spurs here, Brew. I've got Devin Vassell as a sell-high guy. I've got Keldon Johnson as a waiver wire guy, okay? Obviously, we know about Wemby, okay? Like, he's Wemby. Play him, love him, enjoy the numbers, okay? Not much else I can tell you about that. Harrison Barnes is hanging in there value-wise. But for me, Brew, the big question for San Antonio here down the stretch in fantasy leagues is Chris Paul versus Stephon Castle, okay? Stephon Castle needs to play more. He brings like a ton more size, a ton more strength, a ton more defensive versatility. He's more slithery, right? Aggressive, dunking like Spreewell, okay? Like, they got to let this flower bloom. And they're not going to. They played Harry Barnes over all these young guys all year. They're probably going to play Paul, the old guy, over these young guys moving forward here, but I don't like it, okay? So talk to me about Paul versus Castle. Who do you think is going to have more rest of season value between those two guys?
Man, I hate that I'm going to bring up the skills challenge as a piece of analysis in real basketball. But I mean, that's been Chris Paul's story his entire career, is the guy that tries to outthink the game, actually ends up hurting himself in the process. The guy that tries to kind of maybe like take too much control of the game ends up squeezing the life out of it. And here he is shading your generational player into doing these non-winning kinds of things. I would get the Chris Paul influence off the court faster rather than slower if I was Greg Popovich and or the San Antonio Spurs. That's not going to happen, I don't think. I mean, I think it's too easy to lean on Chris Paul in these they're going to be pivotal games down the stretch. It's too easy to lean on Chris Paul because he knows where to stand, he knows where to go, he knows kind of what's happening, and maybe it's actually a good short-term strategy here. Stephon Castle will be probably better than Chris Paul on the floor. He will definitely drive more winning, I think, but it won't look as good. It will be in zigzags. That won't be as easy of a decision for San Antonio to make rather than to just give the ball to the old dude. He'll know where to stand. Harrison Barnes will know where to stand. It's taking the easy way out on an equation where if you want to actually make some noise, if you're San Antonio, I would just throw Stephon Castle out there for 30 plus minutes a game and let him figure it out over the next third of the season. So when you get into the playoffs, he's battle tested and ready to go, but that's just not how it works in the NBA. So I do think that it's going to hurt both players. And unless you can manage the percentages for Castle, the value is not going to be there. That's going to be a bummer because I think what we saw in the dunk contest and just his overall play in the Rising Stars game, but just his overall play this season is this guy's a big-time shot taker, probably going to be a big-time shot maker. He's got the body, the profile. He's everything that you need him to be as sort of a third or a fourth guy next to De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. That's the other thing. I think those two are trying to figure it out. For example, Fox used to play with Sabonis. Sabonis is a big roller, big short roll guy. Not as much pick and pop where Wemby just wants to hang out and shoot threes. I think that they're going to figure that piece out. That's why you've seen a little bit of a value dip for Victor Wembanyama. And I think that that's going to be a point of emphasis for these two guys is to really figure out how can they get a foot in the paint. And that's really the thing with Wemby that I want to see in general. He didn't break fantasy leagues this year. Like everybody thought this is going to be a Michael Jordan do not draft kind of a deal. And it didn't happen. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is more dangerous than him. Victor or Nikola Jokic has more punching power than him. And you could go check the B150 for how I rank those three guys in 8 and 9 cat leagues. But if Wembanyama could get down to the block or figure out a to the basket game, he could get dunks and keep that field goal percentage high and be an even more dominating force and then go to the 3-pointers as a changeup and to be the Michael Jordan of fantasy basketball that everybody was fearful of. Right now, he's a top 3 guy. So interesting stuff. And I think Fox will be interesting to watch down the stretch. I would imagine Fox does pretty well.
I love what you said about Wemby. Way too 3-point oriented right now. I think he's fallen in love with that shot. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's not a great 3-point shooter. And to me, they don't run 1-5 pick and roll. I mean, I'm not going to say they never run it, but I would run it all the time. I would have Wemby coming downhill like Trae Young and Clint Capella used to do in Atlanta. Trae Young's on the right side. Capella's on the left. He comes rolling off the screen. Trae Young's coming in. He's at the elbow now, right? One more dribble into a floater or a lob to Capella. Okay, why don't the Spurs do that? Wemby should be at 30 points a game. And I thought the only reason he didn't win All-Star MVP is because his coach put a blanket on him. He played 17 minutes in 2 games or 14 minutes in 2 games and had amazing stats. But you can't win MVP that way. But he will win All-Star MVPs. We got 3 teams to go here, Brew. We're making our way to the finish line. We got the Toronto Raptors up next. What you got on the Raptors here down the stretch, fantasy-wise?
Strangely boring, I think. I don't think Brandon Ingram's going to factor in too much this year. It's asking a lot for him to get re-ramped up, and then it's asking a lot for his teammates to want to experience that on the fly. Why not wait until the offseason? Maybe they dust him off for a couple games here and there. With that all said, I mean, it's already a mess without that. I mean, Emmanuel Quickley is just basically good for a game or 2 and then disappears. We know he's a good basketball player. We know he's got a sweet fantasy stat set. I got asked a question the other day by somebody a couple of weeks ago. Is like, do I take, do I keep Quickley or do I keep Keon Ellis? Who's the player that I want? I was like, I want Keon Ellis. And Quickley, it was hard to say that. It's like Quickley is supposed to be a top 50 guy easily, but it's not happening and it probably won't happen. So you kind of got a little hodgepodge like Grady Dick, Jonathan Mobo, Jacoby Walter 5 weeks from now. That's when I look at Toronto and I go, what are we making here? That's all I got. And I don't think it's getting any better. I'm not interested in too many of the players there.
That's Aaron Bruski. I am Rick Kamla. I am buying low with Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel quickly.
I love it.
Maybe this is not so boring a take on a really boring team. I don't believe these guys are going to be shut down. I don't believe it. Okay. Toronto, again, its fan base is very important here. Like, I don't think Brooklyn's going to shut their guys down. I don't think they want to bring that to their fan base. I don't think they want to show them G Leaguers for the last 20 games. I just don't. Okay. And I think some teams care about that stuff. The NBA clearly doesn't care about their fans with that god-awful train wreck of a 3-hour broadcast with a grand total of 27 minutes of basketball.
The kid hit the
Sunday
shot.
Night.
The Mr. Beast kid hit the shot. He hit a $100,000 shot with time expiring, and Mr. Beast draped all over him. And still, the moment was terrible. It's a terrible moment in TV history, and I was sad to have watched it.
I'm just saying, man, somebody literally should have kept track of the ad to actual game ratio from actually they shouldn't have, because it's just way out of whack and lame. But I'm buying low with these guys right now. I think I'm zigging when people are zagging. I don't think Toronto's going to shut their guys down. Now, will these guys make it all the way to the finish line? Okay. All the way to like April 9th or whatever the final day of the regular season is, right? Maybe not that far, but I don't think the shutdown's coming right around the corner, okay? I don't. So I'm trying to buy low with these guys, especially Scotty Barnes right now, because I think some managers out there might be getting a little squeamish with their shares in Toronto Raptors, and I do like Emmanuel quickly down the stretch here.
These are baller plays, by the way, because nobody likes these guys right now. I mean, you can have them probably for a song. I'm sure Scotty's more expensive than like IQ, but like, okay, all the reporting out of Toronto is that they want to tank. They said at the beginning of the year, practically out loud, Jakob Poeltl, we're going to tank. Oh, oops, I didn't mean to say that out loud. But Brooklyn, man, if Brooklyn wins, I think Toronto cares less about the losing, because they're on an island. They're at 17 wins. The trio of teams that I referred to a couple times, they're at 13. So this is the next two teams above them are at 20. So they got a 3-win cushion to work with there. And if Brooklyn does try to push, then Toronto can kind of have their cake and eat it too. But watch real closely. You might be onto something with a big value swing there.
We'll see, man. We will see. These are all educated guesses on these teams. Will they shut guys down? Blah, blah, blah. We just got to take our best shot with that. And that's my best shot with Toronto. Now we get to another we got two more tanky teams here, the Utah Jazz, and we'll get to the Washington Wizards. Again, I'm a little fatigued about this, but we are looking at the whole league, all 30 teams. And so we got to be comprehensive here. And I got to go back to the well with Isaiah Collier. Okay. And I don't mean to eye roll. That's an eye roll to me, not him. I love Isaiah Collier. He is a breakout player for the rest of the season. Okay. A must-add guy off your waiver wire, not streamer. Keep him. All right. Over the last week, he's gone 13, 5, and 9, 1.3 steals, and 1.7 threes. And I've seen the fantasy gold game really expand from Collier, okay? Initially, he wasn't hitting threes, wasn't stealing the rock. That has all gotten better. Why? Confidence, time on the court, comfort, peace, not looking over his shoulder, for the guy coming in to replace him. It's his show right now, that point guard position. Over the last month, he's gone 12, 4, and 9 PRA with 1 steal per game, okay? And like I said, the 3-ball game is coming a little bit here from Isaiah Collier. So I love him. And outside of that, I really don't have a whole lot to say about the Utah Jazz. Brew, how about you?
I mean, we're going to have a Kyle Filipowski convention at some point in probably like week 23. But this Collier versus Keontae George, it's maybe not even, that's probably the wrong way to put this out there. It's these two guys. These are the guys. You're going to have all your big horses are going to finally kind of give way as that tank race sputters to the finish. But these two guys will stand. And what I think has been really interesting is Keontae George's field goal percentage hasn't been like better per se, with Collier on the floor a lot, handling the rock a lot, but it's taken the ball out of his hands a little bit. We have seen some small growth in the last couple of weeks where George is a little bit up over 40. At least he's not at 38 or 37 shooting the rock, but he's crushing it from the foul line, 83% over the last month on a healthy 6 attempts per game. So Keontae's been known as a guy that gets you scoring, and then he gets you assists and 3-pointers and even some rebounds, but like the percentages are crushing you. That's not the case anymore. Free throws good, field goal still bad. And I think that just in general, the principle of having somebody take the ball out of his hand so he can get better choice looks at the basket, I think that's going to be maybe the final piece of the puzzle. It's hard to see that happening this season. The Utah Jazz are going to suck. That generates bad shots. That generates bad field goal percentage. Maybe teams don't care when they play him, but it's good right now for Keontae George. It's good right now for Isaiah Collier. The rest of the guys, you could just kind of ride them until they tucker out. But those two players right there, it's exciting, at least.
You know, Utah can be kind of exciting when they play their guys. When you have Markkanen, you have Collins, you have Kessler, you've got these guards, you've got Clarkson off the bench. I mean, it's not a half bad team, man. To me, they could be flirting with the play-in tournament. But, you know, Utah, go get Cooper Flagg. I don't care where Cooper Flagg goes. Go get Cooper Flagg and then try to win, please, for the love of God. I mean, my God, is it the perpetual Danny Ainge tank up there in Salt Lake City? I'm getting really, really anesthetized by the Jazz, man. We got one more team.
I'm in Chicago.
We got one more team to go here, Brew. The Washington Wizards. And you go first here on Washington.
It'd be cliche to start with Justin Champagnie because of the old Champagnie love here. But it's just that's so good. There's a lot going on. There's 5 players. You could feel the starting lineup with the players that I want on my fantasy teams down the stretch. Bilal Coulibaly, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Justin Champagnie, Tristan Vucevic. I just think all 5 of these guys, Vucevic might have a little bit of trouble here in the next week or two. Why would they play Richaun Holmes when they don't really need to or have to? They're trying to lose games. And Vucevic, for what it's worth, is the last of the 5 on this list that I like. I think he's going to be a late round value for the rest of the year and has some potential after that. I don't want to get too far over my skis, but he looks like he's moving quickly. He's got a great shot. He's a bigger, not too big, but he's a bigger body. So right now he's got a nice speed size profile. And I think if you're the Washington Wizards, you'd be borderline ridiculously, it'd be very, very unwise to not play this guy. And that's the worst of them. So Bilal, he's had a green light to shoot all season long. It took guys like Kyle Kuzma and Malcolm Brogdon to rip the ball out of his hands, but he's had that green light all season long. I do not see how he doesn't finish with a top 75 run here down the stretch. Keyshawn George, maybe there's some questions about his field goal percentage and what he's doing on a night-to-night basis, but it seems like they like him. He seems like he's actually a great pickup for them in the draft where they drafted him from. A lot of potential there, good size, good overall skill, good shooting potential. The field goal percentage is going to be an issue there, but I think that he's got mid-round upside. Bub Carrington, we've talked about him all year long. As long as they don't play the old dudes, and that's really what I'm watching for here is, does Chris Middleton play? Does Holmes play? Does Marcus Smart play? Does Brogdon play? And you got other guys there as well, but those 3, and then Justin Champagnie, he's had a top 75 run already this season over the course of a month. And it took Kuzma coming back, and it took all those older players coming back and the showcasing during the trade deadline to move him off the court. And I bumped his head real bad. So who knows how bad the concussion is? There's not a lot of reporting around this stuff during the All-Star break. So he might not even play next week. Who knows? He might just be kind of burning a hole in your roster. And, that's a risk I'm willing to take with this stuff. But top 75 potential in about 25 minutes per game. It's possible he could play 30 minutes per game down the stretch. So excited about all 4 of those guys. I'm excited about Vucevic. And then, Jordan Poole and Sarr. I mean, how much do they got left in the tank? I think that they both can play a lot. I don't know about Sarr. Sarr is the one I'm watching a lot.
I like Sarr a lot down the stretch. And if you're Washington, do right by your player. Alex Sarr still has a puncher's chance to win Rookie of the Year. It's probably not going to happen. I think Steph Castle and Khalil Ware are going to condense to the top of that with a big second half from Khalil Ware, in my opinion. But Alex Sarr has good stats, okay? And this is a really bad stat rookie class. I mean, Cassell's the leader at like 13 a game, right? Nobody is spiking statistically here. Alex Sarr has a chance with a big second half to make those stats look pretty darn good. And why not play him? He just missed a chunk of time. Play him. You lose every game anyway. So I think Sarr is going to be a big part of the Washington plan down the stretch. And I'm going to give you a ranking here, 5 guys. Alex Sarr is number 1 for me. And you could probably go get all these guys on waivers right now. Sarr to a lesser degree, but Sarr's out there on waivers in a lot of leagues too. Bub Carrington is number 2. The stat lines he's been putting up recently have been really, really nice. Brogdon, clearly a bench guy behind him. I'm not worried about Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton. I think they are not a part of this plan at all. I think they're guys in contracts, and they're going to be in street clothes most games. So Sar's 1, Bub is 2, Keyshawn George over Bilal Coulibaly. 2 reasons. I'm not as worried about Justin Champagnie, nor am I as high on him as Brew is, okay? I think that's going to be Keyshawn George's show. And Bilal Coulibaly is next. I like Bilal Coulibaly. I think the stat lines are going to be pretty darn good. And maybe he's not on waivers, okay? But just in case he is, I threw him in there. But Keyshawn George has a better combination of 3 balls, blocks, and steals than Bilal Coulibaly. That's why I have Keyshawn over Bilal. And it's a small sample size, but it's what we have to go on. And then 5th is Corey Kispert. He's more of a streamer for me, like on a Thursday night with 3 games. Play the Kispert card. He'll give you 17 points and 3 threes, right? And then send him back to waivers because he really doesn't do a whole lot else. Brew.
Yeah.
30 teams.
30 teams, baby.
Well done, dude. Anything you'd like to tell the people before we get out of here? And by the way, we're going to be going backstage with you guys after the show. Okay, we're going to be taking some questions, but I'm going to do a little sign off, and then afterwards we'll take some questions from the people. But anything you want to tell anybody at all about anything?
Yeah. You know, I want to shout out our Major League Baseball guys and John Mosales from our NFL unit. Both of these guys, or both of them, the whole baseball division with the podcast got a FSWA nomination. Mosales got a NFL Best Article nomination. This is like I've gotten the nominations and I've won and all this, and you know I've got accolades or whatever. This thing has been this is the happiest I've been for us, and seeing these guys get their just desserts. And go check out the MLB Draft Guide. These guys are doing it the way that all the people who've done it before them have done it. And you know there's a path here where you learn the craft, you do the blurbs, you write the articles, you do those mental push-ups. And these guys have done that. You know, they're not shortcutting anything. And so when you go get that MLB Draft Guide or you get the All Sport Pass, there's a promo code in the B150. It's B150. Oh, we'll get the promo code out to you guys, but it's 25% off. You can get the MLB Draft Guide as well as this Bruski 150, as well as the NFL Draft Guide, as well as the NBA Draft Guide and the next season's Bruski 150, all for the same price as one of the passes. So we're doing that this week. Go check that out because these guys are really killing it. And if you play baseball, and Rick, you're doing baseball as well. Our baseball team is competitive. Like, you guys want to win fantasy leagues? I mean, there's analysts of all types out there. You know, it doesn't all have to be about winning. It can be about entertainment. It can be about fun or whatever it is. But if your interest is winning, these guys have what it takes. So I'm really excited, not just for their awards, but for the product they're putting out. Go check it out, sportsethos.com. Fantasy Pass B150 All Sport All Star is the promo code. It rolls off the tongue, I think. But yeah, no, it's been great. And getting to have an episode of 2 plus 21 minutes, 2 hours plus 21 minutes to kind of regurgitate all of the studying over the last week. That's been fun as well. So thank you, Rick, for putting up with copious amounts of analysis.
What do you mean putting up with it? We've all been eating it with a spoon and a fork, man.
I know. We could do this all day. The time limit thing, I'm not down with. Ask Doc about that with my articles.
I will. I'm sure I'll get a smart answer from.
Oh, you will. Ask him about my Bruski breakdowns over at RotoWorld. He might have a word or two.
I love it. Brew and Doc used to gig over there. Now we're all over here. Okay. I keep telling people, Brew, on my broadcasts and podcasts here, nobody's doing fantasy content better than us. There are some places that are bigger than us, right? But nobody's doing it better than us. So we're trying to get the word out here, one podcast, one article at a time. Before we wrap it all up here, we have 3 asks for you. Please subscribe to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Check. Subscribe to Sports Ethos YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Check. And check out sportsethos.com and subscribe to our work over there as well. 3 checks and you're good to go. Me and Dr. A are back after Wednesday's game, the Lakers and the Hornets, around 12 p.m. Eastern time for a breakdown of that action. Also a look ahead to Thursday night slate. There's like 9 games on Thursday. Tune in on the YouTube channel or listen to us on the Fantasy NBA Today podcast feed. It's all there for you. 30 teams broken down. The B150 is out. Go check that out. For Aaron Bruski, for Andre Lemouche, I am Rick Kamla, and this episode has been brought to you by Bet Online. We'll see you very soon. As in right now. All right, we're backstage, baby. We're backstage with Rick Kamla and Aaron Bruski.
The episode length goal is cracking me up for that episode. 90 minutes. Okay. Yeah, let's go.
Bro, there was no way
in hell
an hour and a half could contain.
You know who's ambitious? Our producer is ambitious.
He is. He's very, very ambitious. And so are we. We made it through 30 teams in like 220. That's okay.
That's good for me.
Look, we try to keep it moving as much as possible. We got a lot to say. Okay. So Damian Santiago says, torn on who to drop for a stream spot in my 10-team ESPN points league. Vassell, Scoot, Bol, Ware. I've got Cam Thomas on IR 2 for a stream spot. Scoot's going back to waivers out of that group.
I'm iffy on Vassell. I wonder if he gets boxed out by all this action.
I said in the broadcast, he's a sell high guy for me. I'm not really high on Vassell, but we're talking about sending a guy to waivers. Like if you send Vassell to waivers, you're going to be snatched up like that. You send Scoot to waivers, he may sit on waivers in a 10-team ESPN points league.
Right now, but he's about to go off. Shout out Dr. A, who's been on that all season. It's like Scoot survived the bust thing, and he's about to break out a little bit.
All right, you go first on this one here, Brew. Joseph Kim says, how do you order these guys in 9-cat? Denny Avdia, Podziemski, or Kamara?
I think it's got to be Denny, then Kamara, and then Pods. Kamara's got a lot of potential, but Denny's got the ball in his hands, and he's been kind of the apple of their eye dating back to the offseason when they got him. And then letting him play in the midst of all this stuff, wanting to tank. Okay, now we want to win. But, once they went Denny, I think they started winning. They'll probably honor that the rest of the way. I think it's going to be Denny at the top.
I have the same order. Denny, then Kamara, and then Podziemski. I call him Poj. Everybody else calls him Pods.
You're Pojing him?
I'm a Poj guy on him. I don't know. But BS knows. He says, I need a center in a 9-cat, 10-team, 18-man roster. Would you trade Klingon for Keontae George? He says, I need a center. Yes, I would trade Keontae George for Donovan Klingon right now.
Yeah, it's a fair value. It's a fair value, and Klingon could go off.
Nico Leon says, my boys, Trey or Sabonis rest of season. Brew?
I mean, Sabonis ranks better. He just does, because Trey's turnovers, I think he's averaging 10 turnovers over the last month. It's not 10, it's 6+. So I don't know if that matters to you in your 9-category league. Sabonis also, here's the interesting thing about him. I don't think it's going to impact him this year, but he's rolled his ankle 10 times and just kind of dusted off. But it's impacting him. He's getting injured more frequently with that thing. And he'll deal with it in the off season, but it's the kind of thing that's kind of becoming more noticeable in games. I think maybe they drop him down to 31 or 32 minutes as a result, but I don't know. Stat set, it's Sabonis. Production wise, it's going to be Sabonis. Trey might reach up to the sky and shock the world though.
I'm on Trae Young right there. The way they've stripped down the roster, I feel like he's got to score 30 every night now, and. He was very sacrificial at the beginning of the year, and they were winning, right? We're feeding Jalen, we're feeding Hunter, we're feeding all, a Kongwu or Capella. And now, he's not really feeding Daniels. Daniels is a garbage man, a really, really good one. A Kongwu, they run a little bit of offense for him, not much though. So to me, it's going to be the Trae Young show, and it's not going to be conducive to winning, but it's going to be conducive to fantasy. And I could see a lot of 30-10s here down the stretch. So I say Trae Young. And Brew, to answer your question, because some people probably are wondering, no, I don't give a dang about turnovers. I lose that category every week in every league I am in because my teams are good and good players get all the turnovers. Steve Sloan says, how much of a shutdown candidate is Walker Kessler? Bingo. I am not the guy to go to. I am too emotionally invested, Brew. I have Walker Kessler in 30 deep. Okay. If Walker Kessler plays out the season, I might finally get mine. If he does not, I'm dead in the water. Okay. Walker Kessler, for me individually, Rick Kamla, is the most important player in the NBA moving forward.
You're not
more than Ron, more
to
than
answer
Luka, more than the MVP. I'm telling you, for me, he is the most important player in the entire NBA. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. What do you say?
I'm clearly, we can't ask you about this question. I had Daniel Gafford go out, and that he might come back in the last 2 weeks, which in 30 deep, we were forced by the size of this league to actually have the playoffs in the last 3 weeks. Maybe I got a shot. But yeah, I would say the over-under on Walker Kessler playing 50% of his games is, I would take the under. And it's going to be close, but it's going to be the under. I'm so sorry, Rick. I'm so sorry for your loss, but your loss is my gain. So
man, I haven't taken a loss yet, bro. Don't you put that on me.
I am putting it on you. I'm putting it on you and Steve.
This is my year, yo.
And Panda.
By the way, me and Brew and Doc are all very much in contention for this 30 deep championship, man. Like I said, you can't find better content anywhere. We're the patriarchs of this thing, the founding fathers, me and Doc and Brew. We are. With a shout out to our boy, Andre Lamouche, who's a rock star as well. All right, DJ Andre LLC. Had Andre been born at a different time, he would be a part of that founding fathers thing. But Andre is a little bit younger than us. DJ says, stash Brogdon or Smart, 12-man head-to-head, 9 cats. This is a
man. That is a tough. No, just no. Don't do it. I know Washington's crazy like that. Just don't do it. Don't do it.
Man, Marcus Smart ain't playing for Washington. All right. DJ Andre LLC says, also, as Time Lord, we're stashing with 8 and possibly done this season. Brew, you go first here.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least like the other two were I get why you asked the questions, but they're rough. This one's maybe a little bit actionable, but here's the thing. They have Duop Reith to clean things up. If they're winning, like they had this good week, right? They win this week, they win next week. Then all of a sudden, the possibility that Time Lord gets to play a little bit becomes more relevant. And of course, it's all about the details on the ground. I don't think you should stash Time Lord, given probably about 10 to 20 players that would be a better stash than him. But it's at least there.
I love that answer. I don't do stashes. So I just don't do stashes. I really don't believe in them, because if I'm stashing a guy like in a 30-team league, in a 20-team league, I believe in stashes. Okay. 16, 14, 12. I don't believe in stashes. You have to be playing and rocking and rolling for my club, because I'm not just going to take bagels and miss all the man games. All right. So just as a general rule, I'm not a big stash guy. I'd rather go to the waiver wire and get a fertile player right now. Robert Williams, to me, is damaged goods. That's why nobody wanted to trade for him. Okay. That's why he's still a Blazer,
right there.
And they shopped the heck out of him. I just don't see a guy that can play more than 17, 18, 19 minutes. And for that reason, his numbers are never going to get to a level that's really going to help you that much. So I'm out on Robert Williams. Amen or Dyson rest of season? Great
Shout
question,
out, Yuri.
Cats in Oakland.
Yeah, Amen or Dyson? That is a great question. That is a great question. Dyson? Dyson. It's Dyson.
It's Dyson.
Look, you don't have to worry about anything. It's easier. You don't have to worry about anything. He's got the skill to make it happen on a permanent basis. They want to see what they got. I could go longer, but.
Oh, by the way, sorry. I'm maybe getting the hiccups here. I hope not. Shout out to Bitches Be Ballin', by the way, Yuri's podcast. I want to go on their podcast.
Do you think she'll have you?
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
She's not.
She probably will, if I had to guess, but.
I want to go on the Bitches Be Ballin' broadcast. I didn't answer that last question. What was that last? Oh, it was Amen or Dyson. My answer is Dyson with that. And we love Amen Thompson, but like we talked about earlier, Ahmed Thompson's a sell high guy for me right now with Van Vliet and Jabari coming back. So I would rather have Dyson. All right, so let's move on to the next question here. Cats in Oakland, thanks for playing ball with us.
You're gonna love going on that podcast if they have you on there. They really, really, really know their stuff.
Oh, I would love it. I'm actually, there's no joke with that at all. I would love to go. So is Cats in Oakland? Is that bitches be balling right there?
That is bitches be balling. That is.
What up, Yuri? I didn't know that. She says, thanks, gents. Was curious. Kamla, that would be fun. Just reach out. I'd love to come on with y'all. So Budwin Kerwick. I believe it's Budwin Kerwick. Would you say that name differently, Brew?
No, but I always get it wrong.
Do you have any advice for someone who has
You're all good, man.
a deliberately injured? What do you mean deliberately injury prone team? The gamble.
Wait. Do you have any advice for someone who has a deliberately injury prone team?
I'm in the twilight zone here, and we want to swing.
No. I get where they're going.
So they just took a bunch of dice rolls on the Joel Embiids and the Zion Williamsons and the Ja Morants.
Yeah, I have a team I did that with, and it's somehow working out. It's crazy. It's not for the weak at heart, but yeah. Okay. So what's the question?
He said, and we want to swing for one trade before the deadline. Do we target stability or more risk?
What's your position in the standings?
He says, I know my name is impossible. Appreciate the effort. LOL. Yeah, there's some for us Americans, some oddly placed J's, which are kind of throwing us off a little bit. I say that with all love, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate you saying that, Budwin. You just said the OG of fantasy for him is your guy. So I really appreciate that. I don't really know how to answer this. Let me try. Okay, Budwin, since we're conversing here, what's your record? Okay, like, are you in sixth place? Do you have a puncher's chance here? Are you like in eighth place and really need something to go in to get above the playoff line? Are you in second place? And so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Budwin, hit us up with that. Like, how's your team doing with this? Because my thing is, Brew, if you went with the deliberately injury-prone team strategy, which I've never heard before in my life, and it's working for you, then keep doing it. And if it's not working for you, then go for the stability. And he says he's in the middle of the pack. So I say continue to roll those dice down the craps table.
Man, it's all about the opposition. Like, I'll play in these leagues. There's a couple $1,000s for the entry fee or whatever. And it's like, they're just so good. You know, these are the best of the best. And I know, like, if I'm not taking like 5 big risks, I'm not in it. And so but if I play a couple intermediate leagues where, you know, it's like, you know, whatever, you know, I will then like dial it back and take a bunch of players I won't take anywhere else because I'm like, oh, I really want that player. They just don't have the upside. I'll take a bunch of boring players. And then it, you know, does whatever it does. But it's based on the opposition. If they're really super good, I do think you need to take risks.
John Coleman asks, can I play LaMelo this week with 3 games?
That's a Rick question.
Probably not. I mean, we got to wait for the injury report and all that. Is the injury report out yet? Probably not, right? It'll come out on Tuesday in advance of the Wednesday game. So we just don't know yet. I don't feel good about green-lighting LaMelo Ball, especially if it's a weekly setup where you can't make any moves throughout the week. Like, your lineup is your lineup. In a daily, it is what it is. So I'm kind of saying no to that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Steve Sloan says, I ask about Kessler because I have a punt point steals build, debating trading TM3. Help me out. Who's TM3? Oh, Trey Murphy for Kessler. TM3 might get shut down as well. TM3 ain't getting shut down. I can tell you that right now. I don't really think New Orleans is going to shut down CJ McCollum. Zion is Zion, right? Who knows? He obviously hates the game. He never wants to play. So who the hell knows? I don't think Trey Murphy's going to get shut down. I would much rather have Trey Murphy than Walker Kessler down the stretch. Much rather.
Yeah, I think you probably just, it's unfortunate because your point steals build is begging you to try to look at this kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, you got one player that's probably going to lap the field there, so you can't do it.
Brew WS says Eve Misi or that should be Matkovich, not Markovich. Quentin Grimes or Buzelis, 9 cat, 12 team? Take a swing at those, dude.
I wonder, is that that's two separate questions rolled up into one?
Yes, it is.
I would go Messi because he's a better player. I think he's got a higher profile within the team. Until that injury comes back and it's bad, I'm going to go Messi over Markovic. And then with Quentin Grimes or Bacelis, that's a really interesting one because
yes, it is.
Grimes might reach up into the sky and get you top 75 valuable. Matas Bacelis gets all the headlines and the hype, and it's like top 100. But I'll take the hype and the headlines of Matas Bacelis over the bird in hand of Quentin Grimes.
Oh my God, this is so tough. WS. I'm going Buzelis. I'm going Buzelis because there's more upside there. And I do fear depth becoming an issue for Quentin Grimes a little bit. I do like Grimes. I think he's a really hot pickup right now. I'm a fantasy gold guy, block steals threes. I think Buzelis is going to be better in fantasy gold than Quentin Grimes down the stretch. I think PRA, Quentin Grimes will be better. And I like them both a lot. It's a great question, but I would go Buzelis. And then I would actually go Makovic over Messi because, Messi's 8-8 with a block, right? That's what he's going to do. I feel like Makovic could be hitting us with like 1.5 blocks, 2 threes, because Zion's going to shut it down at some point. And then Makovic season is on. All right. Joseph Kim says, what do you think of Io's rest of season value? Thinking about picking up Denny and possibly Kamara and dropping Podziemski. Boy, we just had that one with Denny, Kamara, and Podziemski, and that's the order that we put those guys in, Joseph Kim, which should help you out there. Hit me with Io, rest of season value.
Well, definitely go check out the Bruski 150 because it's going to have this stuff all laid out nice and easy for you. But the Io rest of season value is really it's hinging on his health. It's been all over the board with lots of little tiny things here and there. And then the question of whether Chicago wants to compete or not will overlay on top of that. So you got two separate concerns there. Whereas with Denny and Kamara, these guys are going to be top 100 guys the rest of the way. Kind of no questions asked. I don't think even if they're punting, they're not putting those guys on the floor or tanking, pardon me. So that's an easy one. And Pods, I think, is all the way out. So I would take your Portland guys here.
I'm not an IO guy. I mean, as a human being, I'm sure he's a hell of a guy. I like him in reality as a 6th, 7th, or 8th man on my team. Okay. I don't believe he's at a starter level. I believe Chicago starts him out of necessity. And Doc is a bigger IO guy than me. He's light in the fantasy gold. Look at the numbers. The steals, blocks, and threes just aren't great. They're like, okay, there's a pulse there, but it's nothing actionable for me. If Kobe White blows a tire, if they shut down Vucevic, if it's Buzelis and Io against the world, then that's different. Okay. But if, Giddey as well, right? He's in the way. But if all those guys are healthy and Chicago's still, we're trying to win and make the play-in tournament, then I don't think Io is going to be a big-time heavy hitter for you at all. I've got him in Streamerville. Brew, this has been epic. This has been unforgettable. You the man. Any final words before I sign off?
No, thank you to all of our watchers, listeners, fans, subscribers. All you guys make this happen. So thank you guys for sticking around for a 2.5-hour episode. And just click the buttons, likes, retweets, all that stuff. I don't like to hawk that stuff because I really hate the whole social media game in general, but it helps us out. So thank you guys for all of your support and send us that feedback. We want to know what to build. So if you guys get into our tools, tell us what you want to see next. We'll just put it on the roadmap and we'll go from there. But thank you guys very much for all the support.
Appreciate you guys out there as well. Retweet our stuff, okay? Put it out on timelines and just get the word out. We're trying to blow this thing up. We've already got the best content in the biz. Now we are trying to blow it up. For Aaron Bruski, for Andre Lemouche, I am Rick Kamla. This has been the Fantasy NBA Today extended backstage style. And this episode's been brought to you by Bet Online. We'll see you soon.